Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Football, it began simple enough. Line up 11 men on one side, 11 on the other. The team with the ball is the offense. The team without it is the defense. Snap the ball, you run, you collide, and you tackle. But now football is much more. No longer just a game of brawn, it's also a game of brains. This is Bare Necessities.
Good evening, barflies. Welcome back to Bare Necessities. I'm your host, Jordan T. Silveira. You can find me Jordan T. Silveira on Twitter. Obviously, if you're tuning in here, Barroom Network on Twitter. As you all know, Aldo Gandia back officially, not producing here tonight, but he is obviously here presently, back from vacation. You can find him at Aldo Barkeeper on Twitter. Very much appreciate you all for tuning in tonight. We have a fun show, a little bit of surprises, plenty to talk about. So let's get into it. I guess let's hit you with a little bit of the notes for the show before we kind of introduce our surprises. So I did not want to talk about DK Metcalf again, but I feel like I have to. The guy received a massive extension. What does that mean for the Bears? What does that mean for Roquan Smith? You know, as I've got to say, I kind of felt like I was the bandwagon leader saying, come on, Roquan for DK. That obviously isn't going to happen now, so I want to touch on Roquan Smith's prospects for the Bears, what we can expect out of Roquan Smith, assuming he gets signed. Talk a little bit about training camp, kind of the musts, if you will. Came up with a little segment of, if you had to pick five things that must happen in training camp to ensure success for the Bears throughout the season and early on, wanted to discuss those. Talk a little bit about training camp for you barflies in the chat. If you're interested in going to the Chicago Bears training camp, please feel free to get a hold of Aldo Gandia. He did have a few tickets to training camp available. Not sure if those are still available, but if you're interested in going to training camp, please feel free to message Aldo at Aldo Barkeeper on Twitter. I, being out in California, and Cliff, you feel free to razz me because I know you don't like California. We'll be actually doing a few visits myself, though not to Chicagoland for Bears training camp. But with that being said, the big main portion of the show we're going to talk about, I know how all you Bears fans love for me to talk about other things not related to Bears, but I promise we're going to link it nice and tight. It's going to be Seattle Seahawks talk, the Legion of Boom, Pete Carroll, the defensive dominance that basically changed the landscape of the NFL for a decade. So without further ado, let's get into it. I do have a couple surprise guests today. Well, one of them shouldn't be too much of a surprise as I bring him in. You all should know Mr. Shorty pretty well. Mr. Shorty, how are you this evening?
I'm excellent, Jordan. Thank you very much for having me on again. I appreciate it. This is awesome.
Yes, sir. And we're going to talk a little bit about Bears country here as we kind of get into the open. But I also want to make sure that we add the real surprise, the man, the myth, the legend. Let's bring him in. We got Nick. How we doing tonight, Nick? Thanks for joining us.
I am fantastic. How are you two?
I'm wonderful.
Nick, it's great to see you, Nick. It's awesome. This is great to have you on here. This is
great
awesome.
to see you guys as well. This is great to finally be on here. You know, talk some football.
Love it, love it. So before we start, you got to help me out, Nick.
Yeah, what's up?
Is it art by Nike? Is it art by Nick? Help me.
All right, so it's pronounced Nike. So it's like you're saying bike, but with an N.
Got it.
You can just say Nick. Obviously, like Nike it's an inside joke thing, like I've mentioned a few times on some chats before. Shorty knows. So you can just say Nick if you want, since it's easier to pronounce. But since everyone now is here to listen, it's Nike. Yeah.
But is your actual name is pronounced Nike?
No, it's Nick.
Oh, okay.
Nike is just Nike's like an inside like joke
right
between some of my friends and shit. So.
That's like Mr. Shorty for me. I'm like 6'2", and all my friends called me Shorty, and my last name is Shortino. So Shorty, I just shortened it to spell it Shorty. Yeah.
Okay, well, excellent. I seriously can't say it enough. I mean, one of the things I want to kind of reiterate is when I started Bare Necessities, and Aldo and I were kind of talking about bringing the show, I told him, if you want me to do it on Barroom, just understand I really desperately want to connect and bring barflies into the mix. Everybody's got let me put it the diplomatic way. Everybody sees the game a little bit different, and that's what makes us great, interesting, exciting. And we're going to talk a little bit about that, Nick. I know you're not the biggest DK fan. We want to kind of break into that. I'm going to razz you a little bit.
We need some opposite perspective, right?
I don't hate him.
But
I like him. I won't trade for him, but I like him.
Yeah, well, and it's one of those things that, as I said, when I was talking to Aldo, I said, look, I want to have guests. I mean, problem me is I'll talk too much of a pit bull. I get too passionate about different topics. But
football's a passionate sport, man. It happens, you know.
Yeah, and I really want to make sure that I just kind of navigate and give the floor to you, Mr. Shorty, you, Nick, as well. So, without further ado, let's kind of get into it. So,
all right.
First topic I'd like to discuss is DK Metcalf. As you all know, I mean,
oh God, DK Metcalf again.
People watching last week, and I guess I do have a little bit of a.
You don't have 25 minutes of DK video again, do you?
No, I don't. Yeah,
okay.
I don't. Desperately don't want to
get shut down again.
I'm just kidding.
No, I do have a surprise. We may get banned a little later. We're going to see. We're going to try.
Yeah, we don't want to lose feed.
I do not want to lose the feed. But for those listening, if for some reason the feed goes out later, understand that the YouTube algorithm is very random in how it decides when it cuts out. If it cuts out, just let me know. Can't see anymore. It does take a couple minutes, but as soon as we cut the video off, it does eventually reestablish. I do apologize if that happens. I will try my best to avoid it. I'm sorry for last week. We'll handle it. But I promise we're going to make the DK talk different. The one thing I just want to kind of start with, Mr. Shorty, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Bare Necessities it's in its infancy stage. I mean, this is not easy to make a podcast. It is not easy for everyone out there that thinks you're just going to make a podcast. It is not as easy as you think it is. So you've been doing a great job, Jordan. It was just an oversight that you learned a lesson. That's all. Moving on.
Well, I appreciate it. Speaking of which, I guess before we get into the DK topic, just a little bit, I'd like, Mr. Shorty, you got something new kind of going on that I'd like you to kind of just drop and pump up for us. Tell us about the Bears Country podcast.
So I launched Bears Country podcast this past Monday, 8 p.m. Eastern time, and it's my baby. It's my wife and I's baby. My wife has been encouraging me to do it for years because I won't shut up about the Bears, and she's like, somebody else needs to listen to this besides me, and so I made the podcast. Basically, it's dedicated to the fans, to just be able to listen to everything that I have to say, because there's a lot of different perspectives of thought that I have. And I can't wait to get into it more as the season goes on, because it's been such a long dead time in the year that, we're all sick of the same thing. So it's like, I wanted to start it before the season started, but I have to kind of piggyback off of some of the dead stuff. That's why I tried to have fun on my very first podcast that I had on Monday, which I did a little, I personally think it's funny. I did a little bad lip reading of Matt Nagy talking about Justin Fields starting his first game, because he was just a bumbling idiot to me. And I was kind of worried about, copyright infringement. So I just played the audio and I just did my own impersonation. So hopefully we don't have any bad, press conferences like that again out of this new head coach. But if we did, I'll reopen that for sure.
No, it was excellent. I got to tell you.
Thank you, man.
Did you get a chance to watch it?
With me, yeah.
It was. I mean, it was just a good time. And Mr. Shorty, I mean, I didn't know it was coming, but that whole lip reading thing, I think that's a good bit. If you want to just continue, I'm not blowing smoke. I thought you did an excellent job where you're pausing, having the Nagy mannerisms. Just kind of.
He was bumbling so awfully. If you watch the press conference, it's like, what in the. There's clearly something going on in the background. Not his.
You said it right. You said it sounded like he was kind of being forced just to come out and talk about it. Like the way, his body language, you're on the money when you said that. It literally sounds like someone who's if you don't go out there and you make Justin the starter, you're out of here now, today.
Exactly. Go say what you have to say to save your job.
Right. You want these fans to give a crap about you and like you?
And for the first time,
present Justin Fields.
In the press conference, for the first time, he was wearing a hat, not a visor.
Probably because the top of his head was probably beat red, because he was trying to think of something to say.
It was pulled down, and he had his head down like this the whole time, not really looking at anyone, because he couldn't face the facts, I appreciate that, by the way, Nick. It's
of course.
I was wondering how well that would go over. For anybody that hasn't seen it, there's a clip that I posted on my Twitter page at Mr. Shorty on Twitter, and I also posted it Well, I'm trying to get it to stay on my YouTube page, but again, podcasts are hard, so we're trying to figure all that stuff out.
Well, just want to make sure we plug that. I think it's an excellent.
I really appreciate that. Thank you, Jordan. Yes.
Maiden voyage, if you will, and those barflies listening, feel free to tune in to the Bears Country podcast, Mr. Shorty on Twitter. You can, I'm sure, find the link and everything there. We'll make sure to plug it again, but it's a really good listen. And
it's also at Bears_Country_ podcast on Twitter. There's an underscore between the three words.
Perfect. Okay. Well, then let's kind of get into it here. So the DK Metcalf situation, for those that are not aware, DK Metcalf was extended. He is currently a 24-year-old receiver.
Oh, God. Are we talking about DK again?
3 year, $72 million extension. Included a $30 million signing bonus. The most ever for a receiver in NFL history.
Imagine making that much money at 24 years old. That's beautiful. Good for him.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's a lot of freaking money.
Yeah, we're talking about a receiver that, ultimately speaking, I mean, really got to give kudos to his agent, to him. He's going to hit the market again at 27 years old.
In his prime.
Yeah. Another big cash in before he hits the 30.
You can still get him in 3 years, retro speaking. If things don't work out, we still need a guy. Hey, maybe he still comes here, Jordan.
Yes, sir. We'll see. So I got to ask, Mr.
Can I pause you before you continue?
Yeah.
Would that be the contract you would be happy with if the Bears had made the trade like that you were talking about and they signed him for that? Would you be happy with that? Because it's over $20 million a year.
I know that's a damn good question. So
23 years though.
Yeah, the reality is, I always assume
signing bonus included, so it's probably less than It's probably less than 20, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No, you're okay. And the situation, Cliff's over here. Like, if I want to talk Seattle, I'll move to California. I get you, Cliff. I mean, the situation here is that I always expected, it's just the receiver market nowadays. You're going to be paying over $20 million if you want one of those guys. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think I'd be okay doing that. So let me pitch you the good and the negative. The good, the positive, the negative. Positive is that in many ways, if it doesn't work out, you're only on the hook for 3 years. Probably not a lot of dead cap. You can cut it relatively easy. You're just in for 3 years, in and out. The problem, though, is if you really believe in the guy, I don't want to really have to re-up in 3 years and pay you another $30 million up front and everything like that. So, I don't know.
Well, can I pause you for a second?
Yeah.
Once you get that far into any contract, that's when all the nerves start kicking in, right? Like we talked about last week. So, wouldn't it be almost better to do a 3-year contract just so when it gets to that point, then you can renegotiate or not, instead of be stuck with this contract you have to burden for another couple of years and maybe it's not working out?
Very true. Probably makes negotiations, re-signing a lot easier for like that midway point. That's a great point from Shorty.
Yeah, and they could lose him as easily, but it could benefit them too.
And who knows how Seattle's doing on cap? I don't really, I don't know how well they are post Russell Wilson. Like if they haven't had enough to do perhaps like a longer contract or something like that. So like this is what can give you for right now. Here's $74 million. We'll come back to you, in 3 years or so, 2 years or whatever. If we're looking better financially, we can give you another extension from there. Add another 2 years to that or something. Now it's a 5-year deal, if you will.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Shorty, Nick, you bring up a good point, because something that I just kind of hit me is, in many ways, I guess these shorter deals, if you can get a player kind of, signed off, ready to play for that short period of time, it's beneficial. Because something I was talking about a couple of weeks ago with you, Mr. Shorty, on is that, Aaron Donald, the whole situation with him is he got that fat contract, and the Rams were very particular about front loading it, giving all his cash up front, making it so that when he hit this back end portion of the deal, it was relatively cheap and they could bring another talent. And it ended up almost biting them in the ass. Now, they made it work, but the situation is you had Aaron Donald going, woohoo, I've made my money up front. Now I feel like I'm underpaid. I need more money. And it's, the whole idea is that the Rams kind of going into this going, look, we're going to be smart. We're going to be savvy. We'll pay him up front. We'll get the benefits later. And you actually just end up kind of not getting screwed. Aaron Donald's an amazing player, but you don't get any benefit. You're just constantly paying him this huge value. And I guess look at the Khalil Mack trade in some ways. You're talking about another big monster deal. And if it doesn't work out, you're tied to this guy with a ton of money left, dead cap hits. And all of a sudden you're sitting there going, it didn't work out. I signed this guy to a 6-year deal. Maybe it would have been better if we just got Mack for $100 million for the 3 years. And then look, it doesn't work. We're out of here.
Aaron Donald was an example of one that did work out, though, because they both signed their contracts in the same year, and Donald ended up being worth every penny of it, and it turns out it wasn't worth every penny of it for the Bears, right? So if it had been, it probably would have been easy for them to go fork up another couple of years to him, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think it's a good deal. I mean, we've got quite a few barflies in here kind of talking about Calvin Ridley maybe as an option. Good for DK, got paid. Julio Jones, not anymore. He's in Tampa. So let's kind of transition it there.
Wait, I missed that. Julio Jones went to Tampa?
Yeah.
Holy cow. Okay.
Yeah, so, what this really leaves us is in a situation where, and I'm excited to talk about N'Keal Harry and kind of as we talk about the main topic of the Seahawks tonight, things of that sort, but really what we've kind of touched on is that the Bears are missing that X receiver, that ball winner. And that was really the enticing part of DK to me. When you look at, people are, talking about Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley's got a whole year to serve, but even then, he's not a big ball winner. He's more of a Z receiver. Not that Z's are bad, but you've got that in Darnell Mooney. So when you're talking about the archetype that you're looking for, there's really no other options. When you go out and look, there's nothing left. So
Right.
What that signifies to me, and I'd love to kind of hear, because I feel like we can kind of solidify it and say this is what we're looking at. What it tells me is that the Bears wide receiver room as it sits right now, barring any major cuts, you've got to have Fields building chemistry with the guys he has in training camp right now.
Mm-hmm.
This is kind of the room that they're going to have. And with knowing that, Mr. Shorty, Nick, what are your feelings on the Bears wide receiver room as it stands right now? How do you feel we're going to watch 17 games with this wide receiver? What are your thoughts?
I'll let you go, Nick.
Honestly, it could be a lot worse. I look at the 2017 team. They didn't really have anyone good like that I can think off the top of my head, because it was the following offseason where they got Allen Robinson, Taylor Gabriel, Trey Burton. Then it was a competent, competent group for the league, if you will, yada yada. This group, you can look at it and say, oh, it's kind of scrubby, if you will, from like a name standpoint, but at the same time, we don't know exactly what we're getting just because the scheme is different from what the Bears were last year. But, execution means everything. So we don't know if they're going to be good coming out of there. But I think it's going to be a solid group. Mooney, in my opinion, is pretty good. He's going to probably be the one for this year, but that doesn't mean that he'll be the one going forward for the Chicago Bears. I just think he'll be who Justin has the best chemistry with as far as receivers go. And then Vegas will probably be a close number 2. But I also like Byron Pringle a lot. The guy almost got 800 yards being the 4th option in Kansas City. So that should tell you that he's at least good to get that much for being not targeted so much per game.
Mm-hmm.
How old is he? 27?
Right? Yeah.
Or 28 or something like that.
I think he's 27, 28. Yeah.
He still has a handful of good years left in him. We'll see what happens. I'm not going to sit here and say that this is a top 5 unit. It's not at all, but it's not garbage at all. Like, I've seen way worse.
I like your comparison to like the 2017 team, because if you remember, they were bringing guys off the street. Who is it they got from San Diego for the 7th round pick?
Dontrell Inman.
Yes, thank you, Dontrell Inman.
Kendall Wright.
Yes,
Josh Bellamy.
Thank you, Josh Bellamy. And for those
Bellamy,
those not remembering, Tariq Cohen, the 5th round running back, was basically the starting slot receiver.
Yeah.
Yeah. People, it's funny because it's one of those things where you have to really look back. All these media members talking about how bad the Bears wide receiving core is.
Our core was so bad. We were talking about how we messed up by letting go of Cameron Meredith. That's how bad we were.
Exactly.
That's how bad our wide receivers were. And people want to complain about what we have right now. Give me a break. Give me a break.
Nick. Yeah,
Robbie's bringing up a good point here. Bellamy is indeed an incredible.
Yeah,
I
think he is. Yeah.
That's right.
It's just
wait, didn't Josh Bellamy ended up screwing someone's wife on the team and getting into a fight with him during training camp or something?
Really?
That's what I remember.
I don't recall that.
I remember the story being that he had been banging one of the guys' wives on the team. It was another wide receiver. I forget who it was. That was the story anyway. I'm not saying this is all hearsay. This is what I remember the story being.
Yeah.
And he got into a fight with him in the locker room over it, and that's how he ended up getting kicked off the team.
Well, what's funny is you're not even. I know that this isn't like a drop. We didn't kind of joke about this before, but I don't know if that happened with Bellamy. If it did, that's amazing. But we're talking about the Seahawks tonight. Like, I don't know if people remember Percy Harvin had that whole situation where it was like him and Golden Tate had some situation where they were like messing, and maybe it was like Russell Wilson's wife or girlfriend. I don't know, something weird was going on with.
Something like that. Yeah, there was some rumors. Yeah.
Yeah.
The girlfriend, the big mouth girlfriend from his pictures or whatever. Yeah, was messing around.
It was Anthony Miller. It was Anthony Miller's girlfriend. Yeah. He was a rookie on the team. And I was like, what? Josh Bellamy? Really? I never liked him. And after that, I never liked him even more. So
no wonder why Miller wanted to fight everybody. He was salty.
Yeah. No kidding. Now he's in prison.
Well, so, I mean, I figured I couldn't not lead off with that because that was something we just talked about last week. And I got to tell you, I'm not here to pat myself on the back, but I just feel like it's pretty interesting that I wish I could tell you I had a crystal ball, but by no means have I been forecasting the future. It just happened to be that we're talking about poignant topics here in Bears Necessity, from Eberflus's defense to Roquan Smith. Before he was holding out, we were talking about the value of a linebacker to DK Metcalf. He's been signed. So,
and just to finish what Nick was saying, I like his point that we have a better wide receiver core than them.
Yeah, Mr. Short, I don't think you ever gave your opinion. I mean, let's hear. I mean, if you,
I believe we have a better wide receiver core than we had in Mitch Trubisky's second year.
Okay,
in 2018.
2018 was not Robinson.
For the record,
right?
was Robinson.
That was Robinson.
Oh, that was Robinson. Yeah.
Yeah. 2018 for the record was Robinson, Gabriel, Burton, and Miller. Those were the four.
Yeah, Miller. Yeah.
I think that's a better receiving core now. I do.
Okay.
I mean, you might be able to argue the Robinson point, but
yeah,
everyone else is better than the rest on that team, in my opinion, anyway.
The thing with Robinson too, honestly, he was good, but I think he was a little overvalued just for the simple fact that Mitch kind of was feeding him the ball a lot. But granted, he was making some fantastic catches, something that the other guys weren't doing, but he didn't have that breakaway speed that like Devontae Adams, DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill have. I think he's really good though. Like, he's gonna be fantastic on the Rams, but
he is going to be great on the Rams. Yeah.
But he wasn't
he was Trubisky's security blanket, much like Mooney is now for Justin.
Yeah.
Robbie's over here talking about Devin Aroma Shadu, and I mean, the Dane Sodzenbachers of the world. And
what's up, everybody in chat? Cliff, JTK, Raby.
Yeah.
Yeah. How y'all doing today?
Their Truth. Good to see you guys again.
Yeah. So, I mean, I figure we'd have to lead off with that. Let's talk about it, because ultimately it kind of puts any thought of a Roquan for DK trade, but DK just coming to Chicago in general, and that's fine. I promise I don't want to sit here and backtrack like I didn't love the idea of the trade. I want to be very clear. Positional value thing, I would have made the trade happen if it was possible, but it was never a negative for Roquan. What that really tells me now is I don't think that there's a reason why they're not going to pay Roquan.
Right.
You don't have any trade chips that are on the table for a receiver. I tend to believe that Eberflus has got this defense where, look, I mean, it was very clear in the draft, I need help from my defense. Get me the safety, get me the corner. I have a hard time believing he's going to say, look, let's just go ahead and ship off my starting Will halfway through training camp.
Right.
We're now looking at a situation where Roquan is probably going to get paid, and we could probably debate that and argue till we're blue in the face about what the value is. And I don't know, we can maybe spend a couple minutes there, really what I kind of wanted to talk to you all about is your feelings on Roquan now, considering that there's not any potential trade bait. We've all heard my opinion on it. Shorty, I hate to say it. I think I overcrowded you last week and didn't let you talk enough about it. But
I was letting you go. You were on a rant, and you're an eloquent speaker, so I let you go. It's okay.
Well, and so let me hear it from you, Nick. You and Shorty. Like, what are your plans what are your thoughts on Roquan? What he's worth? When you can expect him back? His role for this year? What you're expecting? What are we paying him, and what makes it worth it? Where are you like, okay, I'm okay with that?
If I can just interject to add to what we talked about last week.
Sure.
Last week we talked about his value going from a 3-4 to a 4-3, right? Like, he was playing the middle linebacker position in the 3-4. Now does he want the middle linebacker pay in a 4-3, or are they they're playing him at will, so he realizes he's going to be making less at the will than the Mike. So, but I've been kind of thinking about this since then, and what would he have made if he was still playing the 3-4 middle linebacker, right? He's not an edge rusher. He's not the premier paid linebacker in the 3-4 defense at that time, right? So now you're putting him into a 3-4 or 4-3, and he's playing Will instead of Mike. Does it really matter? Like, I think the contract negotiations are more getting stalled up now on like the small things, like kind of like it was in his first contract holdout, where he was trying to make sure he wasn't going to be fined for certain hits, and it could just be something simple as that again,
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, Nick, I mean, what are your thoughts on I mean, I'd love to hear from you, because I got to razz you a little bit. Not that you hate DK, but there was a lot of like.
Yeah, I don't hate him at all.
I'm not trading my linebacker for this receiver. So let me hear about your passion for Roquan. What is a linebacker worth in today's game to you? What would you pay Roquan?
I mean, I'm not a cap guy, so I can't really tell you what someone's really worth, because it changes every year. I could say, oh, Roquan's he's a $20 million year linebacker, but then
no, we say $20
here. Yeah, you know what I mean. I'm sorry, I'm a little.
No, you're good.
No, we messed up all last week. We're just we're just gonna call it 10 and 20.
Then the following year, then it's $25 million. Then the next year, it's $30 million. So it's hard to really say what the value is. I don't think they should blow all their money on him, because that's not how the league is aimed towards. Like blowing all your money on your defense like that. But he's still a guy you want to keep on your defense. I think he's hard to replace, because he's that sideline to sideline linebacker who's a tackling machine, similar to like Darius Leonard, Trent Warner, Devin White, like those guys. I think he's in that echelon of linebackers. Those guys are, first round level type talents, or have the capability of being first round level talents if they weren't taken in the first, so on and so forth. But those are hard to, instantly replace, whether it's through the draft or free agency. You normally won't find a guy like him on the free agency market, because they tend to get locked down in contracts, because they're hard to just find laying on the street like that. So I think we'll say $20 million a year for.
Well, I was just gonna say, if I put this number out to you, what would you guys think? 5 years, $90 million.
Well, I mean, boy, you made me question. That's like, I'm salivating that. That's fine, because to me,
that's a long really contract.
18 million a year. 18 million a year.
That's not bad. 18 million a year is not that bad.
That's why
will he take that though?
Probably
that's
not
the question. Yeah.
Probably not, but that's why I would jump on it, because I mean, my stance, and I'm not Mr. Cap guy, but I think that in a perfect world, and mind you, and I think maybe the chat should know this, because they're always like, man, you just don't like Roquan. No, my problem is that I'll give you a little insight to who I am.
You're misunderstood, Jordan. You're misunderstood.
I'm a real cheap ass. Like, I'm as frugal as it gets.
You live in California. You have to be.
So the reality is, like, if I want to lowball Roquan, not because he's a bad player, but I just want a deal. So my deal for Roquan would be 16 to 18. Never going to happen. Never going to happen.
Right what I said. Yeah.
So I actually think he's probably going to go, give me 22 or 23. And I'm like, you're out of your fucking mind. I'm not paying you receiver money.
That's a lot.
So here's the thing. I hate to say it. I've come around to the idea. Let's meet in the middle. I want 18. You want 22. If we could come to a 5-year 100. Well, yeah, I'll even do 100.
We'll keep it under 20, like we talked about that last week. Keep it under that nervous level.
J-Rock. Oh, you're making me choke up on my
spit here. J-Rock.
Jordan's a McCaskey at heart. Yes,
damn, J-Rock. That's how we're doing, Jordan? All right.
Good one, J-Rock. Yeah.
And Robbie's over here saying we'll pay him a couple extra million. He's the rock of the defense. Well,
I'll tell you what.
Give
him 17 million and a year and a 2-year unlimited supply of Portillos.
Who says no?
And J2K really hit it here. I think that's the sweet spot. Make him feel like a star.
Mil.
Give him the 6 figures. Here's your 100 million. I'm not worried too much about the guarantee.
That's most likely.
Yeah. I'll give you your 20 million a year. You make the big 6-figure payday.
Mm-hmm.
You come in as the highest paid. I just can't be giving you more than 20. And that, so we're clear when it happens, because I feel like it's confident. I'm confident that it's going to happen. I want to be just on the board before it ever happens. If it's over 20, you're going to hear me bitch and complain. And if it's 20 or under, I promise you'll hear me singing the praise of Ryan Poles.
I think over 20 should be for like a top 3, top 2 guy who's like is like the like top of the like cream of the crop guy. And Roquan is good, but I don't think he's like that. But even then though he's a linebacker, I'm not going to give a linebacker that much money, period.
So
I'm giving that to my quarterback, my edge rusher, my wide receivers, and that's really about it, because those are the game-changing positions, if you will.
So that's my thing. To me, I'm not negative on Roquan. I mean, you don't, in my opinion, doesn't mean anybody has to agree with it. The top guys to me are Fred Warner. Then you're talking about Demario Davis. Then you're talking about Darius Leonard. And then I think you start talking about Roquan on that fringe. Is he 5? Is he 6? Because I have to be honest with you, I like Levante David a lot. Levante David's super underrated, slept on in this league, been amazing for his entire career in Tampa Bay. He is my number 5. So that puts Roquan at number 6. The whole point is I don't want to pay you number 1 money when you're number 5 or number 6, but I also can concede. It doesn't matter. We're in the NFL nowadays where when you get a contract, it doesn't matter if you're Kyler Murray and you're number 10 overall or you're Deshaun Watson and you haven't won a Super Bowl. We're just in this world where we always reset the limit. If the last guy made 19, you got to pay me 20. Okay, the last guy made 20, I need to make 21. So I don't even love the idea of paying him 20 for a guy that's top 5, top 6. But I think that's my number. We talked, Mr. Shorty, about if it's over 20, I can't do that. I can't feel comfortable about it. I think the expectations start to outrace the contract. And so if it's 20 or under, I think I'd be happy with it.
I would be too. If it was over 20, I would. That's like we talked about last week. That's kind of like the nervous area because you're like we talked about. It's your move.
Yes, indeed, Cliff.
like I just said, if you're playing middle linebacker in a 3-4, what are you getting? Like what would if in a perfect world, Vic Fangio stayed, right? The team succeeded. Let's just say we made it to the playoffs. Three of the 4 years of Nagy, and Roquan was coming up into his next contract as a middle linebacker in a 3-4. What would it? I'm trying to find the numbers, but I don't know what they would be. So you kind of have to go. We're starting over again, and you're going to be playing kind of like you're playing a different position in a 4-3 that's going to roam that side of the field. We're going to ask you to do a different thing. How can we value that? It becomes so tricky.
Well, and the thing I was going to say, I mean, PJ, you've got a good point here. I just want to be clear. And I mean, Mr. Shorty, if you want to look up the financials of 3-4 backers versus 4-3, if there's a real difference, I'd like to hear it. But I mean, PJ, just so we're clear, I totally get it. Leonard and Roquan are going to be wills in the system. Davis and Warner, Mice. I totally understand that. The whole point is just that it's an off-ball linebacker is really the way to encompass all that. It's the difference between, look, I mean, Roquan's going to be an outside linebacker in a 4-3 system. Khalil Mack's going to be an outside linebacker in a 3-4 in LA. They're not the same. That's why we talk about we differentiate between edge versus off-ball linebacker.
Right.
And the thing is, too, if I can interject, just because Leonard and Roquan will be are the will backers doesn't mean that they don't play inside, because when they go to those nickel and dime packages, they have those guys on the inside. So sure, on a base defense, Roquan's an outside linebacker, if you will. But for the most part, Eberflus likes to run those nickel and dime sets. So Roquan's going to be in the middle with most likely Nicholas Morrow. It's just going to be those two for the most part on the field. Those are going to be the linebackers going side of the sidelines, calling the plays, making those tackles. We're not going to have to worry so much on who's our Sam, this and that, because he's going to be on the field probably like a quarter of the time. It's not going to matter.
Well, right. And if they end up playing kind of like into what Jordan's going to discuss, into like a more of a hybrid defense that puts them all over the place, like you're saying. So,
Well, I mean, that's kind of where I wanted to go to here. And Cornelia said, just so we're clear, because I'm going to kind of talk about this now, saying, so you guys don't believe Roquan can excel in the system like Leonard? No, to be very clear, I tend to think, and I think I made this clear last week when we talked about it.
Don't put words in my mouth, Cornelius. I think he's going to be a stud. He's going to be a stud, especially being Will. He is going to be a stud.
He will be a stud, and I agree.
I tend to think that, assuming he's signed and gets enough time in camp, it stays healthy, I think you will see a better player this year, which is why it's okay, why I feel somewhat comfortable saying, let's give you that 6-figure deal, $100 million, 5 years. I can get in and get out, where you're before you're 30, if it starts looking negative, we can just get out of here with it. So I'm okay with that. But one of the things I wanted to talk about, though, is just the general idea that as much as I wanted DK and it was about this positional value talk, I got to tell you, I'm really excited to see that, because that was the thing. I'm only trading Roquan because I know he's a good player. I'm aware he's good. In order to get DK, a good player, you have to give a good player.
Yeah.
I'm kind of excited at the prospects of saying we get to keep Roquan, a good backer, and Nick Morrow, who I also think is primed for another big year. And
He's good.
I'll kind of lay the foundation schematically, and then we can talk about it as a group. But really what I think the audience I'd like to share is that in the league today, nickel defense, having a slot corner, is more prevalent than it's ever been. And so, especially in this defense, and I don't mean to get too wax poetically too much about scheme and odd fronts versus even, 3-4 versus 4-3 defenses, and I can answer any questions if you guys have that or the chat has them. But the general idea is that this defense is going to be an even front, 4 down linemen, with nickel being ran so much. It leaves 2 linebackers. You're taking out your sandbacker, which is Matt Adams or Jack Sanborn. And then you're in this situation where you have Nick Morrow and Roquan Smith that are there simply to, and let me be very clear about who they are. To me, Roquan Smith is, if he's not great and fit in the run, the one thing he's excellent at is coverage. Instinctive, understanding how to play zone, matches up well on man. So he's your guy that can play coverage, can play robber, can play rat in the hole on defense, but also cover the swing to hooks, these hook zones. Having a guy like Nick Morrow, who I think not only is he fast, he packs a wallop when he hits. Yeah. And so now you have that guy also flying around. And so the whole idea is, look, the linebackers, maybe the positional value is not as good as it once was. But as I was mentioning last week, with a nickel player, it's important that the 2 linebackers that you have are versatile and fill a variety of roles. And I think that you have a situation now where we're talking about Nick Morrow, who can fly around and hit people and force turnovers, who understands the defense, who is going to be calling the plays. And then you have Roquan, who gets to ride freely as the will and chase down plays from the backside and play man on swings, on running backs, on tight ends. I think it's going to really expand what they can do on defense, having these 2 flying backers just able to fly around the field in a 4-2-5 defense.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, please, Mr. Shorty, let me know. What are your thoughts knowing that this is kind of the defense? Because this is the idea is with training camp, we're able to really lock in on what this team is starting to form and look like.
I'm very excited for the different things that we're going to, the different defensive alignments we're going to see with what Eberflus is going to do with the pieces that he has. We've built a really, on paper, it seems like a really strong secondary. So if that secondary holds up, that's going to cause our defensive line to be able to do a lot of different things, right? Mm-hmm. So you have 2 different ways of controlling the game on defense. You control it at the defensive line, or if you have a dominating defensive line, or if your secondary is more dominating per se, it gives you more options on the defensive line to move things around because of the coverage, right? So you have your coverage sacks and you have your straight up sacks that your defensive line causes. So, I mean, there's so many different things that they could do with their coverage this year with the backs that they have, their defensive backfield, that could cause their defensive line to flourish, even though we don't think maybe there's things we're not thinking of, or we might be missing, that could be run in a hybrid kind of a defense, such as the Seahawks defense, like you were talking about in the beginning.
Absolutely. And then Nick, I mean, what are your thoughts on it?
I don't know, man. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, no biggie. I mean, I can kind of feel that too. I mean, Shorty, what you're talking about is so interesting because as we're talking about defense in the league now, I mean, Ravi was here saying wax poetically, you're going to give me a little bit of floor, I'm going to take it. Just the idea here is when you're looking at defenses in the league now, it's really 2 high shell, quarters coverage. It's just about, we're all trying to get to the same result, stopping explosive plays early, getting defenses in advantageous situations where we're putting offenses back, not having these big 35-yard plays. And really what I like about that is you have these situations where there's multiple ways to skin the cat, multiple ways to get the result we're all seeking. And in a lot of defenses where we're coming from the Fangio, which everybody loved, that's your odd front, 3 down linemen, 3-4 defense, kind of like a 50 front once you have it all lined up where every gap is accounted for, no bubbles, you're rolling safeties. But the idea here, too, is that with this 4-man front, a lot of people, and this is why I wanted to do this Seahawks episode, is a lot of people believe that is yesteryear's defense, that you can't be successful with 4-down linemen playing a 4-3. And there's true fundamental differences between a 3-4 and a 4-3, and I'm more than willing to go into those and express those differences. But really, I think it's what you're saying, Mr. Shorty, we're going to get to you right now, Nick, is this idea of having a secondary that can smother and hold down the back end. And really, let's be very clear, man coverage is still the gold standard. If you have players like Jalen Johnson, who we all know can play man, and Kyler Gordon, who's as athletic as it gets, can play man and lock him down. If you can have defensive backs that play zone well, understand the techniques and concepts of the defense, we talk about the hits principle, fundamentally sound, and then you have guys that are capable of holding back with man coverage in the back end for long enough. Now it's about how can we generate pressure? How can we overload the front? How can we find a way that even if I'm going to get an overload here, even if I'm trying to get the offensive line to slide this way, can I have one guy? Can I get one guy one-on-one? Can I have Robert Quinn one-on-one with a tackle and see if he can ultimately break free and get the sack? And so it really allows you to play. And then you can really do a lot of crazy things. And this is the idea of Roquan and Morrow, mugging those linebackers up into the A. Now you've got two missiles. Who's going to come? Who's going to drop? Are they both going to drop? Are they both going to come? Are we going to end up sending Morrow and Smith in the A gap and then drop, Travis Gibson out, who's a former linebacker who understands zone coverage? It's really allowing
a little predator action.
Oh my goodness. It's really this genuine enjoyment for me to see. And this is why we're going to talk about the Seahawks and the way that they played. I think you're going to see this defense by Alan Williams and some influence from Eberflus get really funky in the way that if I could ask anybody, it's funny because we're going to be playing this team week 1. Go watch how DeMeco Ryans operated that San Francisco defense. That is in many ways kind of the goal. If we can reach what that looks like, that is 4-down even fronts, 4-3 defense at its finest peak right now. And that's really the goal. So let me shut up because like I said, I can go forever on defensive scheme, but Nick, show. Please. No. But Nick, I want to hear your perspective on what keeping Roquan means to this defense.
You're the star of the show tonight, Nick. Give us your perspective. We need some feedback.
Keeping Roquan just assures you have like your rock on the defense, your stud linebacker, the guy who is gonna be the leader, that everyone follows by example on that defense. The guy who's gonna put the emphasis on the hits mentality, no loafing, going hard on every play, this and that. And you guys kind of said a lot of stuff that I can't really think of much else to say. I mean, he kind of like he fills everything that you want for your main linebacker. A guy who, like you said, can stuff a running back, whether it's on like a swing route or chase him down. If he breaks out of an outside zone run, or he can even chase people down the seam. We've seen him, pick off Joe Burrow. Did he do it twice in that game, or was it just the one he had? Because I know he had that pick six.
Yeah, he had the pick six, but Jalen Johnson had the press bail where, played it beautifully. Maybe it was Jamar Chase. I don't remember exactly who it was. Press bail is the technique of, look, I'm going to take a T-step in my drop, but I'm giving the impression that we're playing press, and then I'm giving you one hand, and then I'm shooting back into a cover 3 look, and played it so beautifully where Burrow thought he had the underneath route. And Jalen was like, no. See, I've seen this before. You think I'm bailing, and now I'm driving on the ball and snagging that pick.
Right. That's the thing that excites me about the secondary that we have. Like assuming everything goes as well as we all plan. There's going to be so many different things that we can do in fronts and different disguised looks with the simple addition of Dane Cruikshank and then drafting Brisker. Those Cruikshank can play a linebacker spot if they need to switch up the defense and keep it the same look, but go a little bit more hybrid. It's going to be really exciting to watch because I really do have a lot of confidence in this defensive coaching staff, as well as I do as in the offensive coaching staff. Getsy is just giving me a boner, man. I don't mean to sound like, but God, he's the way he talks about his players, the way he talks
accountability.
I said it. I commented in the Bears chat after his press conference today that he's not going to be a Bear long. So enjoy him while he's here. because this guy is going to be a head coach in a couple of years, and we're going to be upset when somebody plucks him from us. And almost at that point, I was thinking, well, fuck it, just fire Eberflus and hire him as the head coach. I mean, what's wrong with that? You got to keep your team great, right? So if that's what makes the team great, let's just say, if it was sidetrack Getsy, get rid of, just move on and make him the head coach, right?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, we're going to move on here briefly, but J2K, if anybody's interested, I think I broke down like 8 or 9 games of Colts film, and I know that Colts fans saying the guy really blitzes. This is not even just an Eberflus thing. It's the idea of running a 4-down even front. Mm-hmm. This is the beauty of it, is it's really about, and this is why I think, I mean, we're going to talk about some fundamentals and scheme here, but why it's so important to have a good secondary. Because at the end of the day, it's really hard to kind of finesse and find a way to scheme coverage up to be, invincible. The idea is if you can really find creative ways to generate pressure and create benefits and advantageous situations in the math by overloading fronts, by running games with your 4 men, having truck stunts like we talked about with the 49ers, it's a situation, and this kind of goes to the idea of like the guy really blitzes. I've shown film where he's blitzing both safeties. He's rolling them back. We're watching Al-Qadim Muhammad drop 15 yards on a zone where he's dropping the defenders and bringing guys from other ways. So I think it's really about simulating pressure sometimes. I'm hoping that we're going to see some of that Zimmer look. For those unfamiliar, I mean, Zimmer's a guy that runs 4-down linemen. I'm going to take a little sidebar. The idea of when I was talking about those odd fronts, those 3-4 defenses and those 4-down defenses, it's still, we're going to talk about the Seahawks yesteryear, middle of the field close, cover 1, cover 3. Where the league is now is too high shell. That's cover 2, that's cover 4, that's cover 6, that's cover 8. The general idea of having 2 safeties high back, that means that you're down 1 in the box. And really what that's forcing and creating is unique scenarios where trying to stop the deep play, but how do you generate pressure and find ways to get after it and also fit the run by having less guys up front? And that creates this situation where you have to get creative about your blitzes and your games. And that's where we see creepers and simulated pressures where you've got Khalil Mack lined up on the weak side, and then actually he's dropping and we're bringing, Amos and Quinn off the other side. And that's in a 3 front. The idea is with a 4 is, yes, I want to be clear. It's a little less demanding. It's a little more simplistic, but you have that one man there to run those games up front to kind of be like a tornado, if you will, where it's a 1-gap defense. It is all about penetrating upfield, playing the run on the way to the pass. And now if you start mixing in those pressures, those simulated pressures, look, we're going to bring both linebackers up. You don't know who's coming, who's not. Right. You have to respect that. You cannot have your A-gap mugged up and all of a sudden screw up the protection. So now, I mean, to give you just a very simple term to close it up here, the general idea of an offense is I want to be able to get my tight end and my running back out. I want to have 5 options in an ideal world to be able to throw to. And with you bringing pressure from different areas and having 4 guys up front, and you're mugging the A-gaps, or all of a sudden you're bringing the nickel and he's lining up close, I don't know who's coming. I have to account for that with my protection. I have to keep a running back in. It really wads up the middle. It creates advantages for your defense and coverage. And then to PJ's point, when PJ was talking about he's worried about our 4 down front, about after Quinn, who's there. If you look at the Colts defense, it's really about quantity, not quality. Let's get every guy running about 60 to 70% of the snaps with an idea that every time they're in, they're fresh. They can really be that tornado that's penetrating and causing havoc, which hopefully gets a ball out on a stingy secondary that's feasting on ducks and lob balls that Eddie Jackson can pick off, and Jalen Johnson and Roquan Smith can be the robber and play that Darius Leonard role where the quarterback's pressured because all of a sudden he's got rushers in his face and he thinks that Darius Leonard's out of the play. But Darius Leonard's a super athletic guy, throws the slant, and before you know it, Darius Leonard's crossing and picking it off. I'm just uber excited for what this means, assuming that, look, there's no receiver situation to consider now. The money is probably going to go to Roquan, and that excites me.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I mean, 25 million would suck, but, if we can keep it around 20, that'd be good.
Absolutely. Well,
because, we all need that money back in our pockets.
Yeah.
As if we give a shit.
J2K's over here saying cover 5, cover 8 new terms. I don't need to. I'll leave it here. If anybody has questions about what cover 1, cover 2, 3, ask, I'll try to get into it. J2K is going to cover 11. What is what? Oh man. What's really the long and short of it is that going back to it, I want to say cover 6 was really kind of the end of just basic coverages. And then what you got with cover 7 was kind of what I talked about a couple weeks ago, was the Liz Rip match cover 3 system, playing a lot of man match, pattern match zones. Now what you're seeing in cover 8, which is really just kind of quarter, half, cover 6, but running with the weak side rotation, is just the general idea of trying to present a look like it's 2 high safeties, but being able to fit the run if you need to roll a guy down. And in this case with cover 8, you're rolling that weak side safety down after the route. But really with this man match, pattern match idea, you're using the route distribution. Let's let the receivers run the routes rather than sitting in a zone and letting a receiver find an open spot in it to catch it. We are ultimately playing different responsibilities. One guy is man everywhere he goes. The other guy, we're running kind of a pass off where, look, if the guy breaks in past 5 yards, linebacker takes it, then I drop hook. Like it's the idea of you are pattern matching the route distributions. And that's really kind of the idea of these new age Saban-esque defenses, Dave Aranda at Baylor, that are really kind of penetrating college football and then getting into the league nowadays.
It's crazy how much that's happened.
Yeah.
Back in the day, they barely played any college type, offenses or defenses. And you're seeing it happen a lot more now just because it's easier for the players in college to translate to it.
A lot more athletes nowadays too. That's what helps, because you can do a lot of those certain things. You just got faster guys, linemen who can move a lot faster, so you can do crazy blocking assignments and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's like we were talking about last week on Bare Necessities. Dana Howard from Illinois back in the 90s would have been a high draft pick today, but he was 6 foot. So he nobody wanted him because he was too short. And now you look at both of our linebackers. Nicholas Morrow's 6 foot and Roquan Smith is 6'1".
Well, and that's
our main linebackers.
That's what's so interesting about the league now. This is what I mean. We're talking about the things that give me a boner, if you will. Is I like philosophy. I like team building. I like just kind of the minutia aspects of football. And what I think is so interesting now is we're going to talk about the Legion of Boom and what it was. I mean, listen, the Legion of Boom is still kind of being ran in places like New York and San Francisco in ways and shapes and forms. But we're talking about just a 10-year period where just seeing how the archetypes and the value positions have changed. Back then, you wanted these athletic freaks at linebacker. We're now seeing the value of safeties just skyrocket.
Right, and that's what made the Legion of Boom what it was, right?
Yes.
The secondary was so dominant that it made the defensive line, it made them so they could create that hybrid version to where they could run a version of the 3-4 or 4-3/3-4 at the same time. By pulling that linebacker, pulling down Irvin into a defensive end slot, to an edge rusher slot, and then you end up with 5 men on the line. You drop the other 2 linebackers into coverage and into those A gaps, like you were saying, and you rely on that secondary to just dominate for you.
Absolutely.
And all their corners were tall too. Ricky Sherman and all them, they were 6'4", 6'5" guys, skyscrapers.
And I'm kind of excited to see today that Gordon was he's been playing a lot of nickel.
I like that.
So I what I didn't catch, me too, because if that means that the rookie from last year, the second-year player,
Gordon,
Thomas Graham Jr., if that means that he's the other corner, well, that's a bonus, right?
Right. Win-win.
Yeah, win-win. If we have the rookie playing a dominating nickel position, the slot corner, and then you got Graham Jr. playing the other side next to Gordon or Johnson. That could be amazing if it works out.
And Gordon can still play outside on base formations because they do that in Indy. I can't think of their nickel back, but Kenny Moore. He plays outside and inside. He'll play outside on a base defense, and then when they swing the nickel, he's an inside. Gordon can do the same shit.
Yeah,
hopefully.
It seems like he can't. The guy has superstar written all over his face to me. And you watch him talk. He's a good-looking kid. He's very well-spoken. He knows his shit. He's got great balance, footwork. He's
super
a great athlete. Yeah. If he doesn't...
Y'all seen his dancing videos? The guy's an athlete.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's incredible. The way he moves is awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, and anyone that wants to shit on that for being ballet, please go shit on yourself because
Go fuck yourself.
yeah, exactly. Like that's what makes him a
My
good.
brother was a dancer his whole life. Best athlete I've ever seen. He could fucking move.
Absolutely. All that does is create better athleticism,
Core strength,
and
baby.
agility.
Core strength.
Yep, a core strength. Perfect. And what do you need as a corner?
Core strength.
That hip
He's gonna be
movement, that core
he's
strength.
gonna be bending and twisting like you've never seen it. He's gonna. I'm really looking forward to Gordon.
That's why I was thinking today. It's like Gordon and Brisker and Velus Jones. They should have like a competition going on for Rookie of the Year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It'll make everyone better.
It's so
Absolutely.
interesting. I mean, we've got a few people in here asking about Thomas Graham today, and I don't know if I believe he was there. I do know Tavon Young was starting at nickel, a little different from what OTAs were. Thomas Graham had been the starting nickel all throughout minicamp and OTAs. They're now moving to Tavon Young. I mean, yes,
They're gonna have to mix it up.
Yeah, mix it up. And I mean, look,
Camp.
let me be Tavon Young is legit. Tavon Young is one of the best slot corners when he's healthy. So one, I mean, if you get him when he's healthy and he's starting over Thomas Graham,
That's
look,
okay.
let's get the best guys out
He's
there.
proven.
Yeah.
Right.
And the reality is, knock on wood, I hope that Tavon Young does not get hurt. But the reality is he has had trouble staying healthy. So
That
it
was
doesn't
wood,
matter.
right? It wasn't like faux wood or plastic.
No, that's my wooden table.
Knock on plywood, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have wood right here. I'll knock on that for you.
Yeah, we're doing the John Road. Knock on wood if you're with me. so
you got to make sure you're not knocking on plastic when you do that because you can fuck the whole thing up.
So I guess let's jump into the next topic, which is, I mean, because I do have some thoughts about Kyler Gordon playing nickel. It's a little bit of a new entrance into one of my topics today. But what I wanted to kind of talk to you all about is the idea of this topic of training camp musts. I know I'm throwing Nick here a little bit on the spot. Mr. Shorty, I had to kind of let you in on it late. But the idea, and I can go first if you need time, but just your 5 things in your mind, it's no wrong or right answer, your 5 must-haves at training camp that ultimately should dictate or determine early success and sustained success for the Bears. Particularly their schedule is relatively soft early. It's important to get out to a good early start. What are things that have to be solidified, have to be figured out in training camp this year to make sure that the Bears have a successful year?
Well, for me, it's it starts with Justin Fields.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, without him taking a significant step forward, which I don't mean significant meaning he was bad last year. I just mean because I absolutely love Justin Fields.
He was a rookie last
year. In fact,
I
don't even know why I haven't bought a jersey yet. Right. And he was in such a shitty situation.
Terrible.
I mean, I have my entire life scouted quarterbacks every single draft, and this is the first draft I didn't because we had Justin Fields. But what I did do was put a lot of time and energy into finding every single thing I could to find out how the throwing mechanics that I saw that were slightly flawed last year, if they were improved. And I've seen 100% enough of that to prove to me his throwing mechanics have been improved. He's getting rid of the ball quicker. He's throwing with it. He's throwing within the rhythm of the timing of the offense based on all the drills I've seen him doing. I mean, for me, it's lights out Justin Fields this year. He's the number one thing.
Okay.
Obviously, the second thing that you would need to succeed for that, in my mind, would be the offensive line, right? So offensive line has to protect him well enough for him to do that job to his fullest ability, right? So then third thing would have to be the running game, because the running game and the offensive line go together. So those two things go. I mean, I guess you could say offensive line, running back, then JF1, but for me, it's Justin Fields because he is the key. And I've never had a quarterback in my 47 years of life that I could, other than Jim McMahon, that I can talk about with, so it has to be him in my mind, and everything else there goes running back, offensive line, and whatever order you want to put it in. And then from there, it's wide receiver. And am I at 3 or 4 then?
That's 4.
That's 4.
Okay. And then from there, I think the defense is going to take care of itself. I'm not worried about the defense at all. I really am not. I feel like it's in good hands with the coaches that we have. It's just about figuring out what Getsy can get out of this offense, what his training style and his teachings from, what he's brought from Green Bay. And by the way, anytime you can pluck anyone from Green Bay, just please do it. You know,
Mhm.
As
wide
long as it's not Mike
receivers-
McCarthy.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Keep that man away from Hallis Hall,
wait.
please.
Hold on. Or Edgar Bennett. Smoked us on a Halloween game in the mud, and then we get him and he comes to the Bears and he sucks. But for the most part, if you can, any pieces that you can take from the Packers to make them worse and make your team better in any manner, that's the way to go for me. So you pull Getsy, which everyone's just been glowing about from the Packers. They love Getsy and what he's done to the wide receiver group, the quarterback room, everyone. The offensive assistant positions that he's worked in to help with everything. I think he is just as much of a key to this to make this whole thing run. So again, just to summarize, to be finished with it, Justin, all offensive line, running back, wide receiver, defensive end, linebacker.
Got it.
How about you? What do you guys think? How do you contrast to my?
Yeah, I want to cede the floor to Nick unless he's not ready. But I also want to say, chat,
I'm good.
PJ, Simon, anybody's welcome to play along. I don't mind showing them if you have your 5 musts. Look, this is an audience driven show. I want to hear your feedback and your 5 musts as we kind of go over them here. Nick, you want me to start or you want to go?
I can go ahead. Shorty
Okay.
pretty much he pretty much has like almost everything down to how I have it pretty much. So like Justin Field is priority number 1 for me as well. Does he take that next step? You know, is he the guy long term? Number 2 would definitely be offensive line. How much better are they going to be from last year? Are they going to be significantly better? Are they going to be a tad bit better? Are they going to be worse? You know,
or
like
on
that's
par. Yeah.
or on par. You know, we don't want on par or worse.
Right,
We definitely want
right.
it needs to be better. It just needs to be better. We've had crappy offensive lines for way too long. It's time to have something better for once. And then number 3 for me would probably be a little bit different from his would be defensive line. I'm a little curious to see how things will be now that it's just a basic 4-3, because as you guys are saying, and to what I forgot who mentioned it in the chat, but with Eberflus not blitzing as much, it is going to be all on those front 4. So will Quinn continue to have another good season, or will he go back to having a crappy season? I'd like to see him have another bounce back season. He probably won't have 18 sacks, but can you get us 8?
Can you get us
That'd be
10?
cool.
I mean, 10 would be great. Yeah.
10 would be cool. Can Travis Gibson take another step? A lot of people love this guy, but I mean, we haven't seen enough of him to see if he's the guy. Like, is he gonna really be that replacement for Khalil
Take the next
Mack?
step from last year. Yeah.
You know,
Well,
we don't-
that guy that loves Travis Gibson is me. It's kind of funny.
Me too.
Well,
I love him too.
I don't hate
think
him.
He will, but we don't know.
Well, yeah, we just don't know. We don't know.
Yeah.
I think he did good last year when he was in, but is that like I can give that to you all 18 games? I can be,
Yeah.
I can be a disruptor the entire time, you know.
Right.
Absolutely.
In a different defensive scheme. Right.
Exactly. I mean, I think it'll benefit him and Quinn 100% just to be like hand in the dirt, go get the quarterback. That's all you got to worry about. Don't drop back to coverage. Don't worry about where the running backs go and yada yada. Just go after them. I'm really curious about the inside of the defensive line though, because that interior pressure is really key. You know, with the whole 3 technique and everything like that, and not getting Ogunjobi really sucked. Like I was really bummed about that. Justin Jones, you know, I didn't really look too much in him, like on his tape and all that, to be honest with you. So he's definitely still kind of an unknown for me. So I don't know if he's that guy. So we just kind of have to see. And then number 4, number 4 for me would be the wide receivers, just to see how is it gonna be improved from last year as far as drops go. Because there was a decent amount of drops and stuff last year. I wonder if having a more timing-based offense will kind of help reduce that. Having more, you know, guys in tune and rhythm with each other, having more confidence in knowing when the ball's coming, this and that. Not doing 100 curls and hitch routes.
Right.
And then the last thing is coaching. Honestly, we've been, you know, so far these last 2 days of press conferences have been pretty cool. Hearing coaches talk about accountability, this and that, but actions speak louder than words, you know. So it's hard for a lot of us who don't go to practice and stuff to really believe in what's being told to us from this coaching staff and so on and so forth. Because Nagy, said a lot of good shit, blah, blah, blah. Mitch said a lot of good stuff all those years. I'm putting all the work, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But, it's actions speak louder than words, like I've already said. So I want to see this coaching staff take everyone that we have and make them better. Take these B+ players, make them A+ players. Mm-hmm. Take the C+, make them B+, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I agree with you on that, because the coaching is the coaching. I mean, the shitty coaching we had got us to the playoffs 2 out of 4 years, right?
Surprisingly.
Right.
Surprisingly.
I mean, and this goes back to one of the reasons why I think they're going to make the playoffs this year. There's an extra playoff game. An extra playoff game for an extra team to sneak into, even if they're 10-7, So
it was the Eagles last year, I think, and it was us the year before.
Yeah,
so we can't do it again.
Right. Who's to say we can't do it again
in a weak conference? Let's be clear.
Right. And an easier, much easier. I mean, we won that many games last year with away home the whole fucking season. Like, really?
Yeah, no flow and fluidity in
right.
That,
you can't build any continuity on your season because you're constantly playing somewhere else. Like, that's not going to happen this year. And you make it, you add to that an easier schedule and an extra playoff game. I just don't think it's not out of my realm of possibility to make the playoffs. In fact, I mean, I've said it 20 times. I'll say it again. 11-6. Sorry.
No, you're good. And I'll quickly touch on Vaughn's comment here. Vaughn picked a good show to tune in on. We're going to be talking extensively about Seattle Seahawks Legion of Boom days, which was a 4-3 defense, cover 3 pretty much all the time. Hang on. I promise I'll even show you a graphic of what that looks like, explain what a cover 3 looks like in a 4-3. So hang tight. I promise we will get to it. And then kind of going on here, J2K, I appreciate you. If you want to fill them in on cover 2, I think that there's I touched on this in length at the Eberflus defense video, but want to be clear. The reason we're even talking about the Legion of Boom is, one, I don't want to talk about a hard on or a boner for a particular defensive time. That was really, I love that defense. I love everything.
Did I coin the word boner on your show?
Yeah, you did. So, it's a situation where I love that defense, but everybody has this belief that, like, look, we're just going to be a cover 2 team.
Right.
I love Lovie Smith's defense. It's not that. Yes, they run Tampa 2. Yes, they run cover 2. They run quarters. They run all the too high shell stuff that everybody's running. But I promise you, they run a ton of cover 1 and cover 3. Mm-hmm. A lot of cover 3 weak buzz, a lot of cover 1 robber. And the reason is, when you're playing that 4-3, it's pretty much a prerequisite. That's like your foundation, your bedrock of, this is what we start with. Those are the early installs.
Right.
So we will get to that. But J2K, we'll talk about the cover 2. I see you're kind of filling in Vaughn there. I appreciate it. I will kind of start with my 5 here, and Cornelius kind of hit one of them on the head, and I don't know. I'm trying to think if this is one.
Good call, Cornelius. Yeah, because if he doesn't have a feel for the momentum of the game, he's just Nagy again.
Absolutely. Well, and
True.
let me be very clear. We're all very aware that Justin Fields is number 1. For the sake of not just Jordan the Bandwagon and giving everybody the same spiel, everybody knows how important Justin Fields is. I'm a believer that he's the guy who'll figure it out. I think he still has a lot to prove, but I'm interested in talking about all the other stuff around him that should theoretically set him up to take that jump that everybody's hoping. So one of which is, Cornelius hits it right on the head for me. This is like probably number 1. We'll call it numero uno here with the training camp musts, is really, and I'll dive a little deeper into it. Cornelius, you're talking about the idea of Getsy having momentum for the play calling in a game. I want that, but I'm really looking for, in many ways, the extension of that. And I can talk about, I don't mean to get so deep in the weeds of like Cowboys football or what the Eagles were doing, but what I'm really looking for is, after every game, and I plan to be doing this on Bare Necessities when the season gets going, is we're going to look at drives and plays and games. And what I'm really hoping for is, I want to see a rhythm. It's the idea of, I've talked often about like hitting somebody on the half beat when you're boxing, and look, it's like a jab and then a straight. Well,
you got him. Hit him again. Like, you got him down. He's
exactly.
In the rope. Hit him again.
It's learning to dance with synchronicity of these being, in sync with the idea of, look, we're going to mix up the runs. It's not just going to be wide zone. Then we're going to hit you with counter and trap, and then we're going to run duo and power, and then after that we're going to boot and run, a crosser with with Valus, and then we're going to have, Leak with Komet rolling out the backside. I want them to really open up and start. Not that I think Fields needs to be Jalen Hurts and running the ball, but a defense has to play the game so much differently when they have to account for that sixth man as a threat. And that is what Fields offers you with his feet. So really the idea is I want to see them using GT counter, QB bash, power read, zone read in with all this other stuff. And that's the idea is I don't want to get too gimmicky where we're just running jet sweeps and reverses to Valus every 3 plays. And look, I'm going to take some shit for this. I know everybody hates Matt Nagy. I do too. I think he's a shitty coach. But I promise you, go look at the plays. The concepts were sound. It was the execution that was not. And
I can get down with that. I can get down with that because there was some stuff that was like, okay, I see what you're trying to do. It just never made sense.
All right, hold on a second. Worst coach, Nagy or Trestman?
So, well, worse in what way? Because there's kind of 2 ways you can look at it.
I guess you're right. There's
because Nagy inherited a better roster than Trestman and managed to fumble it, because he only had 2 playoff appearances out of that with that roster that should have easily won a Super Bowl. Where Trestman had a lot of old washed players, but at the same time, no one bought into him at all. Those said old players didn't buy into him. Period. And that's why.
He had that 1 year where they had Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey had 1,000 yard receiving, and they went was it 8-8?
Yeah, it was 8-8 because if they would won that game against the Packers, they would have won. They would have won.
They lost. The wild card. Oh God, that game.
Yeah, fucking Chris.
When
Cunty.
Aaron Rodgers came back and
I mean, to me, it's Trestman without a doubt, and it makes it sound like I'm some Nagy apologist. I'm not. I have to admit that as bad of a coach as he was, there was no doubt that the team found a way to stay together, to play hard, to fight. That's got to be worth something because that's the reality is with Mel Tucker running the game.
Because we look at all the what ifs that could have happened if he wasn't such a shitty coach. They could have been in the playoffs all 4 years.
But you got to give him some credit for keeping it somewhat tight in that respect, as opposed to Trestman and Tucker when they're getting blown out by 50 points.
Nagy didn't really lose the team until that last season, really.
It
was really till the Cleveland game, really, at that too, when everyone was like, all right, fuck this.
What the hell is going on right now in this Cleveland game? For me, it's Trestman, but
honestly,
that Browns game was probably one of the worst coached games I've ever seen as a Bear. Up there with Trestman's 2 50-point blowouts.
When I think of Trestman, I just think of the garbage, awful defenses that Mel Tucker was running. And I can't believe the amount of money this man makes now as a coach. He's that good? How? Where the fuck was that 10 years ago, dude?
I know. Yeah, you were supposed to do that instead of that was supposed to be Ron Rivera, dude.
But so I mean, to get back to the point though, that's my number one is the idea of have some idea of when to zig, when to zag. Look like you know you're not dancing and tripping over your feet.
Right.
I want to see a variety of plays. I want to see them mix it up. Look, if it's RPOs, if it's screens, if it's reverses, if it's zone, it's counter, it's power, it's duo, we're running cover 3 beaters. We're running, cover 2 beaters where we're hitting the honey hole shots. The idea is, look, the reality is in the NFL, they're always trying to take away your best weapon. So you need to be able to constantly play and keep people on their toes.
Adapt.
And I mean, Cornelius is talking about mixing the run, keeps the D line off balance. Somebody was talking about Leo Factor's talking about the Packers play calling. That's a good example. And even I mean, look, as much shit as Cliff Kingsbury gets, and I know that they crashed in the second half of the year. That's a guy as well as the Packers. That's why I bring this up. LaFleur and Kingsbury, one of the things that they're special at is you can watch them get deep, deep, deep into their bag of screens and RPOs and that's the whole idea. I'm not even a huge RPO fan, but the general idea of the RPO is that you are, and this is for all offense and all of football, you want to constantly try to put the opposition in conflict. How can I force them to be wrong? And that was what is so incredible about the Packers and even Kyler Murray with the Cardinals is, man, they get deep into the RPO game where, look, I am literally putting you in a position where if you crash down, I've got DeAndre Hopkins or Devontae Adams hitting that slant, and there's nothing you can do about it, that little glance route RPO. And if you decide to roll back, I've got Aaron Jones or James Conner or Chase Edmonds just cutting you up. And so really it's that idea of, can we get some sort of rhythm with the play calling? That's going to really unlock the best out of every player, not just Justin Fields, but Montgomery and Kmet and Pringle and Valus and Harry, and it's just going to expand. So that to me is number one. I think if we, go ahead.
I was going to say the interesting part about the RPO is like how many different ways it's run, which is, with a running quarterback, like even Justin Fields or Lamar Jackson. But you also add into it Aaron Rodgers, where he's not a running quarterback per se. He's a good scrambling quarterback. He's great in the pocket and moving around and stuff, but there's very few like RPOs that are designed for him to run, right? So it's either run pass option with the running back or pass, so every once in a while he might take off and run with it if it's designed correct, if it works correctly for him. But there's just so many nuances that you can run with different styles of quarterbacks running the RPO. Just on a side note, sorry, I didn't mean that.
No. And really the important part about that is, we're talking a little bit about just different offenses, but you've got a quarterback too in Justin Fields that is not scared to push it and take chances and throw grenades. And look, sometimes you're going to throw the grenade, it's going to blow up in your face, and other times you're going to hit pay gold and hit something. So the idea there too is, if you're mixing it up and keeping the defense on their toes, that's going to encourage Justin Fields to say, look, I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to just drop it 65 yards over here and see if N'Keal Harry can pull it down. That's really the goal. So
and hopefully he doesn't have stone hands like in practice today.
Yeah. Number two for me, I think part of we can look at it with the Eagles, with the Ravens, we talked about the value of an offensive line last week. And to me, that offensive line needs to get figured out. The sooner, the better. The lifeblood of any team offensively is the offensive line. And yes, I know you're going to have injuries and things like that, but it's critical. we're talking about Lucas Patrick who went down today, but the idea is you got to lock that in. And I know we've got the Tevin Jenkins question hanging out there and what's going on with him and everything else. I'm at the point, listen, I think Tevin Jenkins is the most talented guy on the roster on the offensive line at the moment. I know he still needs to prove it, needs to show it. I think he could play left or right tackle. At the end of the day, let me be very clear. I don't give a shit. I just want the best five guys there. So if the guy's playing left guard, right guard, I don't give a damn. Just make sure that we're getting the offensive line solidified, understanding how to set the protections, protecting not just for Justin Fields, but kind of going into my number three here, which is the running back distribution. I know we've got Treston Ebner. I know we've got Darrington Evans. I know you've got Corey Blossomgame. To me, when I really think about the running back distribution, look, you've got Montgomery here on his last year. I think he's going to run hard. I've got a unique comparison for him later. But I also think you have a real player there in Khalil Juice Herbert. And it's, what is that distribution going to look like? Is it going to be the David Montgomery show where, look, it's his last year, we're not going to re-sign him, we're going to run him into the ground? Is it, look, he's much more of a power running back, we want to be able to hit home runs, and we know, I love David Montgomery, he doesn't have the home run speed. And Khalil Herbert has shown that ability with that. As a returner, he's even got the juice. So that's why he's called Juice. So the general idea is, can I have a situation where all of a sudden are we leaning more to the future of, look, it's the Khalil Herbert show and Montgomery take a back seat. And one of the things with the scheme we've talked about is running backs are always being swapped in. I expect the Bears to take a running back in every single draft. It's just what this Shanahan scheme is. So what does that distribution look like? In a perfect world, if I had it my way, I'd love to see David Montgomery be that thunder, that bash and smash, and then you have Herbert kind of come in as the change of pace back and really shred one off. And then if you're really looking to hit the home run, take 5 to 7 swings a game with a Darrington Evans or a Treston Ebner to see if they can really break a 70-yard one, because, look, it's a real change of pace from Herbert or Montgomery.
Right.
So that's my third. Number 4.
And Ebner.
Yeah, absolutely, and Ebner. Number 4, I think to me, and you're going to give me a little time here because I have to wax poetically about Kyler at the nickel. This to me is everything. And mind you, I came up with this must list a few days ago where I'm just saying what I have in my notes here is the nickel battle. And that to me was Tavon Young versus Thomas Graham. And I still think that's important. I even think we can talk about Dan Cruikshank and Jaquan Brisker coming up and playing closer to the box in the nickel role in a big nickel. All those are a little bit more sub-package. We're talking just general nickel. I think that the news about Kyler Gordon playing nickel, especially not Jalen Johnson, is really revelatory. And I want to kind of get my credit for it. I want to be out before anybody else gets to this revelation, but I will take all the crow and eat all the shit. if I'm wrong, but I'm going to give a little bit more credit to Alan Williams and Matt Eberflus here, and I'm going to take a chance and go out on a limb and say they know what they're doing and they're smart enough to use Kyler this way. And I don't think that this is the type of content you're going to get on Bare Necessities where you're not going to read this shit on Twitter anywhere. So let me give it to you. So, the idea with Kyler Gordon at nickel, to me, let's be very clear about Kyler Gordon. Nick said it, Mr. Shorty said it, an impeccable athlete, a freaky athlete, an alien, if you will.
Yeah,
a unicorn.
Easily the most athletic corner that they have. He's got good size. You can go back and watch his Washington tape where he fits the run. He likes to insert himself in the run game. He likes to hit. That is a prerequisite for playing the nickel in today's game. That's the whole idea. Is if I have to take a Jack Sanborn or a Sam linebacker out, I have to have my nickel be able to fit the run. Or I need to bring a safety up because I need a big body to be able to fit the run since we are -1 there.
Right.
And he is okay doing that. Now, the reason people are like, well, why would we do that? You don't draft a nickel that high in the draft. We want to make sure he's playing outside. I think nickel's is one of the most important and most difficult positions in the game today. And the fact that they're trusting a rookie to do that shows you how well they think of him. Nick, you really hit the point on the head, and I want to touch on that, is that in base packages, I think that you're going to see, that means when it's your traditional 4-3, 3 linebackers, maybe a big nickel, you want to roll that safety down, they will keep Gordon on the outside. But in the traditional 4-2-5, if they are bringing Kyler Gordon down, what that means to me is that, well, one, I mean, I don't mean to jump in a little bit here, but the idea is, I live in LA. I watched a lot of Rams football. Jalen Ramsey is the best corner in the league right now. And that is a guy that is increasingly being used in the slot.
He goes in and out too, yeah.
Yeah. And people are like, well, he's your best corner. Why are you putting him in the slot? And if you actually watch the defense,
those receivers are in the slot, bro. That's why.
Mike Evans,
that's how you do it, dude. It's football. It's simple.
Yeah, it's gotta play the game, man.
Yeah, Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp. The thing is, when you're talking about, well, oh my God, why would you put your best corner in the slot? One of the things, when you're looking at the tendencies of the Rams, when they're having Jalen Ramsey in the slot, look, to be very clear, they're an odd front team, 3-4, ran a lot of Fangio under Brandon Staley. Raheem Morris is their defensive coordinator now, really had to kind of learn. He's traditionally from the Tampa Bay scheme, Atlanta scheme, really runs a 4-3, had to learn on the fly how to run the 3-4 that Brandon Staley ran it exceptionally well. But the tendency that they were using Jalen Ramsey there for was the general idea of when Jalen Ramsey was in the slot, you could almost bet your bottom dollar that they were going to be running cover 1 or cover 3. That is middle of the field close, single high safety. And the reason for that is that, I mean, I hate to say this, and there was a lot of Vildor talk earlier. The reason is, in this case, with the Rams, it was Darius Williams, a shorter corner, 5'8", 5'9". With the Bears, you put Kyler Gordon in the slot to cover that great slot receiver so that Kendall Vildor, Tavon Young, Thomas Graham don't have to. That is the idea there. If you're going to be playing this cover 3, cover 1, buzz weak robber, I want to have Kyler Gordon in my slot so that my weaker corners do not have to be there and they can play outside and I can roll coverage to them. I can bracket the outside coverage. So that's one of the ways, that's one of the exciting things that I'm seeing of, okay, wow, they're already putting Kyler in the slot for that. I think that's
I'm sorry about that.
Oh, no, you're okay. I mean, that's the thing to me is that's the idea.
Oh, that didn't go through. I pulled up a website trying to look at some Gordon stats. I thought my audio played through you. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Okay. Sorry about that.
And that's the thing is when you're talking about Kyler Gordon, you're talking about they already think of him in the absolute best athletic, best corner we have. Put him in the hardest position. And that's really the idea is, look, you need that tackler, especially, when you're playing that middle of the field closed, you can kind of expect when he's there in the middle, that's what you're playing. When you see him out in base, you can expect cover 2, cover 4, cover 6, cover 8. And then really the whole idea is I just want to kind of talk about the last piece of it is the variability. I mean, we're talking about putting your best athlete in the slot so that your weaker corners don't have to. They're not getting picked on by Cooper Kupp. And that's the idea is create conflict. You have these offenses saying, okay, well, if you're going to put your best corners outside, I'm going to move my best receiver inside and take advantage of your nickel corner that's not as good. So now you're putting Kyler on the inside. But really then that also opens up the opportunity to kind of run the Deion Sanders role, the New England Bill Belichick role, which for those that are not familiar, the idea is that they are literally putting a meg coverage on the wide receiver 1. So the idea there is you're having man everywhere he goes. That's man coverage on wide receiver 1. if you're playing Kyler outside. But if you're doing that New England Dion role, the idea is that you are essentially using Kyler on the wide receiver 2. And I know that sounds like, what are we doing? Why would I put my best corner on wide receiver 2? Well, the idea is we trust Kyler to absolutely eliminate and erase wide receiver 2. And then we're going to put Jalen Johnson, who's no slouch in his own right, but if we're conceding that Jalen Johnson would be cornerback 2 behind Kyler Gordon, then you're able to roll Brisker or Eddie Jackson over there to have essentially a cover 2 or a bracket coverage on wide receiver 1. So you're doubling wide receiver 1, and then you're having Kyler Gordon completely eliminate wide receiver 2. That's also one of the things that you can do by having Kyler Gordon in the slot, using him inside and out, that inside-outside versatility. It's huge to me. So this is, I mean, my number 3 here was the idea of what is the nickel battle going to look like.
Are you talking about this year, by the way, or next year?
Yes. No. I'm talking about this year, and that's the idea.
So you're saying, in this scenario, you're saying that Kyler Gordon is cornerback 1?
I'm saying that could be what we're seeing.
So he could actually. Well, the only reason why I ask is because he's only going to become cornerback 1 once he gets picked on so much. He becomes cornerback 1 because they're going to be picking on him all year long, right? So
true.
They're going to be throwing it at that rookie all damn game, every game, just to see what he can do. But if he dominates,
well, and listen,
then maybe he does become 1.
This is the funny part is. I know it sounds like what, so you're saying the rookie's going to be quarterback 1? No. Jalen Johnson is a great player, not bad.
He's good.
Good player in his own right. I'm just saying that. I mean, let me be very clear. As good as Jalen Johnson is, and I'm not here to tell you that one is.
He's a little stiff. I know what you're going to say. Yeah,
Kyler Gordon's a better athlete. I'm just
much better. I'm just saying, like in rookie year, like if he overtakes cornerback 1 after his rookie or in the middle of his rookie season, holy shit, we have. I mean, that's a good.
He was a first-round graded talent, so it's very possible.
He's a much better athlete. That's
so was Jalen Johnson too. To be fair, and both guys
he's a little stiffer though. A little stiffer.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing is, we'll see how it plays out. Look, everything, and I want to be very clear as we kind of go into Seahawks tape here in a minute. Everything that I'm telling you, it's process, it's thoughts. We have yet to see the results. We have yet to see the outcome. I need to see Kyler Gordon be this guy that moves inside and outside, and they're using him and look, blanket the wide receiver 2, and then we're going to roll coverage to Jalen over on the wide receiver 1. And look, all of a sudden we're going to fit you in so that we don't have to put a weaker corner like Kendall Vildor in at slot. You're going to move inside, and then we'll roll coverage to Vildor outside and help him out. And then we're just going to leave you alone so that when Adams goes in the slot, you're there to follow. We need to see that first, just as in the way when I could show you some of these comparisons between Seahawks players and the Legion of Boom. I am not telling you right now that the Bears are the Legion of Boom, but I want to show you the parallels. That's the idea is, no, Kyler Gordon is not Jalen Ramsey. But the nature, and this is what Cliff is saying, moving Gordon inside is another point that shows the brains of the Bears coaching. That's what I'm trying to show is that, no, he's not Jalen Ramsey yet. But the fact that they took a guy where they did the first pick of their draft, started out in early camp saying, no, he's got to learn outside first. And then from the start of camp are going, no, we believe he can play nickel. Nickel is hard. You have to fit the run. You have to play the entire route tree. If it was some easy job, why is Jalen Johnson not there?
Right.
They are giving it to the most athletic corner and telling him, you need to play the most important coverage position in this defense, which is the nickel. We all know that for Flus. That is huge. And so I was just going to start talking about this whole nickel battle with Thomas Graham and Tavon Young and those guys, and we can talk about big nickel and all that. But this Kyler Gordon thing is huge.
This is where I love your perspective on things, because you love the NFL just as much as you love the Bears. So I love how you add this perspective where you are giving us comparisons of how things are built and where the Bears are. From last week talking about, well, even before that, talking about the Bills and their build to what they were doing and how it compares to the Bears. And now we're talking about the Seahawks and how they compare to how they built things in comparing to where the Bears are at right now. There is a lot of similarities there that could match up. And if everything goes well, we could be looking at something very similar.
Absolutely. So, I mean, like I said, I feel like I've waxed poetically there about the different ways they can use them. If anybody has any questions about what I'm meaning with the New England scheme, putting him on wide receiver 2, bracketing wide receiver 1, the idea of putting him inside so that, Your traditional nickel doesn't have to play that. They can play outside. That's Nick, you were talking about Kenny Moore moving to the outside and playing outside. That's because they would sometimes put a bigger, stronger corner there inside that's flexible enough to fit the run. That's where you're seeing it. So if anybody has any questions, I can go deeper, but I don't want to spend another 20 minutes just going over that. I had to talk about that because I think it's a really important, critical component of everybody. That's why I said I want to get on it before anybody else does. When you start seeing Kyler Gordon really moving around, playing inside, taking on wide receiver one, because everybody's going to report to you on Twitter that, wow, that's really interesting that he's going to play nickel. And he said he had a big ass smile on his face when he played nickel. Yeah, let me tell you why he had a smile. Let me tell you why he's so excited. Again, for anybody that's watching, and I know Shorty and Nick, you know this, that's why you're here, but my goals with Bare Necessity, educate, inform, entertain, and that's my goal. Engage. I want to make sure that we're doing all that here.
And by adding other perspective, like other NFL perspectives, some other teams that you can compare to in the building process is what your passion is, and that's what I love about your just passion for the NFL as well as the Bears. It's the two combined, and you have to look at the NFL when comparing. If you're going to compare it to the Bears, what things can we? What are we looking at when we compare where the Bears are now? What does it compare to? And we can look at these other options and get excited about them. And I the more I look at the Seahawks defense, the Legion of Boom, as you're about to go into, I see a lot of the similarities. A strong secondary, a little bit less unknown on the defensive line, but the strong secondary can help to make that defensive line a little bit more hybrid and create different things from it and make it a little bit different than more people think than they perceive it to be. It's not just going to be a Lovie Smith defense.
Yeah. And I mean, I probably, this has gone on way too long. I'll close up really quick here with number 5 of my musts, and that is.
It's not going to be DK again, is it?
No. It's going to be the opposite. I was going to play like the Titanic.
I got to give you shit. Just
you have to. I was literally going to have the Titanic theme song.
Wait, can we pause for 1 second?
Yeah,
it's not DK.
Can we highlight what Cheddarhead just said real quick?
Yeah. No, I know.
Get the fuck out of here, please. You really think Jordan Love is better?
No, and Cheddarhead, you are more than welcome to hang on and listen.
What is this?
Can tell you too, bro.
What is this? Is this the Don Burr of the Packers? What's going on?
Yeah, no shit.
But yeah, it's so I guess I'll go quickly with number 5 here. It's not DK. Yeah,
guys, we have nothing to say to Cheddarhead. We can't compete.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
We'd be like Don Burr trying to talk shit to Cheddarhead right now.
Cheddarhead, Don Burr, if you're here, feel free to hang out. But I'll jump on to number 5 real quick. It's not DK. I was going to play the Titanic theme song to wish him goodbye. I'm never going to get that reconnection. But N'Keal Harry needs to solidify the X receiver position. That's my number 5. I need, and really, I say N'Keal Harry. He's the guy we traded for. If it's Equanimous St. Brown, it's the same Tevin Jenkins thing. I don't give a shit. I just need an X. But to me, if I had to take a bet, I'm not a betting man. I told you how frugal I am. I'm McCaskey 2.0. If I had to take a bet, though, I need N'Keal Harry to lock down that X position. That guy that when it gets tough, we need a catch. Justin Fields is going to lob it up to him, and we know he can go get it. And look, he sounds fired up. In that press conference, he said he jumped out of bed. He was eager. The guy repeated numerous times that this is a much-needed fresh start. Sounds like he understands the situation he's in. He understands that he needs to go out there. He mentioned it. Everybody's fighting. Somebody's got to go out there and capture the opportunity, and he knows that he wants it. And so that, to me, is the guy that if he really locks it down, that's a training camp must. I think and to reiterate, rhythm and play calling, nickel battle with Kyler Gordon, the offensive line being set, the running back distribution, and then if you get a solidified X receiver, I think that those are the things that really are going to tell me that the Bears can be successful going into the season early on.
I agree.
And then J2K, honestly.
Sorry, I just got a little sidetracked. So, Jordan.
Yes.
You have officially hit the big time, man. You got trolls on here now. I mean, you've. Welcome, Cheddarhead. Cheddarhead, come to the Bears Country podcast on Monday night because that means I've made it. Like when you have trolls on your site, on your Bears site, talking shit to you the whole time. You've made it.
Yeah, Cheddarhead. I look, the one thing, and Shorty, Nick, you don't have to agree here. Shorty, if you don't know me, Cheddarhead, you're going to get to know me as you tune in.
Oh God, hold on.
Yeah, tune him out. I love the Shield in the NFL more than the Bears. I have a lot of respect for. I liked Jordan Love as a prospect. I know that's blasphemy to a lot of people. I need to see much more. I think he did not look good in Kansas City. I also don't think that people give enough credit that God, what is his Spags? Coach Spagnuolo on the defense was throwing every page of the book at him, and for a young quarterback starting, it wasn't pretty. But I'm not. He's saying I'm not trolling. Just state your opinion.
Sorry, if I may just say, Cheddarhead, the chance of you having 3 Hall of Fame quarterbacks in a
Very
row,
slim.
yeah, that's like the chance of you buying big dick pills and your dick getting bigger. It's just not going to happen.
The penis pump works. Oh
No,
my God.
it's not going to work, buddy. You're not going to have 3 in a row. So just
Yeah.
enjoy what you have. Hope you can get it one more before your hippie quarterback married or dating a witch retires. Because if you don't, you're going to look even worse. So,
Well, Cheddarhead, I don't know
35 years of Hall of Fame quarterback play and 2 Super Bowl wins. If that's all you have after that, then Cheddarhead and no other Packer fan really has anything to, they really don't have much more other than Aaron Rodgers has the same NFC championships as fucking Rex Grossman. Okay.
Well, and Cheddarhead, I don't know you at all, but I mean it. I one thing I hope to do in the season when we start playing the North rivals is having a representative from the other teams that we can talk ball with. And I don't know, like I said, tune in, see if you're enjoying this, if you are, but we've already got a resident Lions troll that likes to come in. We're going to have him talk Lions. You want to be Packers representative? We can talk about it.
Well, I'm reading. I'm sorry. I don't mean to sidetrack this whole thing because I Don Burr has affected us all, right? So I'm seeing Cheddarhead, and I thought he was a troll, but he's being a nice guy. I'm not trolling. Haha. I'm just saying my opinion. I can't have hope in Jordan Love. Yes, you can. I would expect you to have nothing but that. So thank you for being a respectful Packer fan Packer fan.
Everybody's welcome here. I meant it when I said I'm open to.
As long as you're respectful, we can all be respectful. I mean, Don Burr doesn't have any. He's getting better, but for a while there, it was you couldn't say anything to him nice.
I'm still convinced he's a pocket or a closet Bears fan. I'm still convinced.
Me too. Yeah.
Don Bear sounds just like the Bears if you do a heavy Chicago accent. If you do a heavy Chicago accent, it's Don Bear. It sounds like the Bears. It's a burner account. I swear.
Yeah.
He's just bored.
Yeah.
And Vinny, we love you too. Go Bears, guys. Vinny, thanks for tuning in. So without getting too sidetracked beyond that.
Sorry about that, Jordan.
No, you're okay. You're okay. I promise we're going to get to Seahawks here, and if Vaughn's still here, we'll show that cover 3. But last topic here before we get into the main course, if you will, Seahawks, Legion of Boom. I guess, forgive me, I know, Mr. Shorty, you're down in Atlantaville, Georgia. Nick, do you live? Yeah, you're in Joliet, Illinois, right?
I'm in Pacific time, but I'm a Nighthawk, so this don't bother me at all. So.
Are either of you planning on visiting any training camps this year, Bears or otherwise?
I want to so bad. It's a matter of if I can get access to tickets.
Sure.
I'm going home for probably the entire month of September. It's my mom's birthday in the beginning, and then I have another family party in the beginning of October. I work from home, so I'll probably just go there for the entire month. In fact, I'll probably be doing the Bears Country podcast from. In fact, I thought about going to a bar or something and doing a live broadcast.
That'd be cool
if I can. Yeah,
cool.
But if there is,
if you're
would be
back in Illinois for that, I'll join. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Yeah, I'm in Lake County, so.
Well, and Vaughn is over here saying he's got tickets for tomorrow, so if you want them, message him. I
would love to, man. I'm going to go to a game, though. I promise that much.
Message me on Twitter, Vaughn, at Art by Nike. It's right there. It's right there. My DMs are open, bro. Don't say nothing nasty.
I bring this up because for those barflies listening, for you all, I'm not some NFL reporter. I wish. It's not my job. I have a full-time job, but maybe hopefully wishful thinking. I live in California. Those that aren't familiar are unaware. I will be trying to make time to go to the Chargers training camp and Rams training camp. And I know you're like, why would you do that? Well, one, I hate to say, I told you I love the NFL. I like watching all football, but if I was
you gotta go gain knowledge.
So
yeah.
Oh,
if I wasn't a Bears fan, I'd probably be a Chargers fan. But
I don't
anyway,
blame you.
Yeah, like
why
Bears
would
fan.
nobody
They got
can
the
blame me
goods.
for that?
They got the goods.
So I will be trying to capture what I can of Khalil Mack as well as Allen Robinson with the Chargers and the Rams. But excited to see what the Chargers are bringing to the AFC, and then the returning Super Bowl champions, the Rams. So
Gotta see some Justin Herbert deep balls. That man can throw a fucking beautiful ball.
yeah, and I don't know what their recording rules are. I know the Bears don't like to let anything out. I imagine the Chargers the same way, but I'll try to like sneak tip what I can capture and then post it on Twitter. So just wanted to kind of let everybody know that. So you can find that Jordan T. Silveira on Twitter. I will try to capture what I can from those training camps. I know everybody's mostly tuned into Chicago Bears stuff, but maybe you'll see a crazy Khalil Mack pick six in practice, or Allen Robinson catching a one-handed ball, OBJ style. But we'll see it. It'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So to the main course, the thing that I've kind of been teasing the whole time. So this is the moment of truth where we're either going to find out if we're banned off YouTube, if we're struck down or not. I wanted to get into it with a little video on kind of an ode to the Legion of Boom, the Seattle Seahawks. It's a 2 to 3 minute video chat. Just as a reminder, I'll try to maybe find ways to pause it just to like throw off the algorithm if there's stuff we can talk about. But I want to also just try to let it get through. If it cuts out, it will restore. Just put a little message there, no longer seeing the stream. I'll stop it immediately, and it should pick up in a couple minutes after that. Also, as a reminder, if that happens, YouTube figures it out in the end where it's not copyrighted video, and they post the whole video uninterrupted after, and you can just kind of tune back in to miss that. But you're not missing anything. As soon as I see that, if it happens, I'll pull the video down, and we'll start.
If the video cuts out and it comes back and it's dark, I'll be in the bathroom.
Yep.
Just so you know.
Okay. So to the main course, if you will, as I present to you an ode to the Legion of Boom. Enjoy.
All the millions of fans tuning in on Super Bowl Sunday and don't know really anything about the Legion of Boom. What's the most important thing they should know about this group?
That it's a strong brotherhood. It's a strong bond that I don't think can be broken. We put in that work for a reason. We want to be the best unit in this game.
Nobody in the NFL right now has that connection as far as you really love that guy next to you.
That's why it's a legion. You know, a legion isn't a four-man group. It's a vast army. And when we came up with that name, Legion, we wanted to make sure that encompassed the guys that are behind the starters as well.
Champions never give up, and they never take their eyes off the ball. A play of the year? Could be. But then...
He's out near the 30-yard line. Rivers steps up, swings over the middle, and it's picked off! Intercepted by the rookie Earl Thomas, and Thomas out of bounds.
But that's heads up by the rookie Earl Thomas. That's why they took him in the first round.
Rivers steps, throws, intercepted. It's over. Earl Thomas with his second pick. The Seattle Seahawks will hold on for the victory.
Cobb, intercepted. Cam Chancellor has that. Pass is caught, big hit. Cam Chancellor, and a gain of just 2, and Demaryius Thomas got.
And Bridgewater slides away. Peterson makes the catch here and loses the ball. And Wagner, among others, is there. Sherman says Seattle has it, and they do.
Chancellor stripping that ball out.
They're going to throw. Stafford complete. Calvin Johnson to the end zone, fumbles it, and it goes out of bounds. It'll be a touchback if he didn't break the play. And it's ruled a touchback.
The effort of Chancellor may have saved Seattle Seahawks.
For a first down, it's D'Angelo Williamson has the first down. He's going to get close. The ball's out. The ball is out. Oh, my goodness, he laid it on the ground. What a huge play by Earl Thomas right from behind and just knocked this thing out.
Now breaks down, overthrowing. No, it's picked off Earl Thomas. Going the other way. Across midfield, still moving. 40, coming back. 35, coming to the left side. Fitzpatrick misses him down the near sideline. Earl looks like he could go 10. 5, what a run back! Touchdown! Seahawks! What a play!
Walking down there for Fitzgerald. Ball's out there, diving to make the interception. Earl Thomas.
Hill, Cunningham open. Can he make a move and get there? They're going to say that he dropped the ball before he gets to the end zone. See him making the play. Look at Earl Thomas punching the football.
The ball was fumbled at the half-yard line. It's a touchback.
Again time. Near side, intercepted!
It's intercepted by Chancellor. Touchdown. 89 yards. Protection, end zone. Adams and picked by Sherman.
Okay.
Dude,
So
that was awesome. I forgot how awesome Earl Brown, like he reminds me, or Earl
Thomas.
Earl Thomas. He reminds me of Mike Brown. He reminds me of Mike Brown when he was like, if Mike Brown never got injured, he's like the same body style. He was always in every play. Man, he was awesome. That defense was so much fun to watch.
Well, and before we kind of and chat, feel free to interact. I'm glad it didn't turn off. I had actually the YouTube running on a separate one, so I could see if it cut out. It seems like it went through just fine. Mr. Shorty, Nick, if I could ask you, and chat, feel free to interact as well and answer this question. Is there anything you noticed when watching that film that you think has parallels to currently what the Bears are trying to achieve?
Takeaways.
Yep. Fast to the ball. Like,
yes.
Many men running to the ball
Hustling.
as fast as right. Turnovers.
And Cliff's here saying good deal in getting that past YouTube. Yeah, I don't know how I did it, Cliff, but like we'll just cross our fingers.
Because it was short enough. I think you just got under the radar there.
Yeah.
I
don't think it was. I think you had a little bit more time to go actually, but you don't want to
Truth be told.
Well, so yeah, I
Don't
just
bite
cut
the
that
hand.
up. Cut that up yesterday, but I mean, Nick, Shorty, you're spot on, and that's really where I want to start. And just to reiterate, because I'm sure this may get out and people are going to go, I can't believe this guy's talking about the Bears like they're the Legion of Boom. How disrespectful to.
Oh, geez.
Not saying that they're Legion of Boom.
No.
What I am saying though is just look for the parallels. We're not talking about outcome, just the possibilities, what it looks like.
That's why, like, I lived just north of Denver at the time, so they actually. So when I was living there, everyone was like, "You should be a Broncos fan. You should be a Broncos fan." I'm like, I can't be a Broncos fan. I have a Bears tattoo on my arm. Like, what are you kidding me? but I was like, well, they are blue and orange, and they are in the AFC, and the name does start with a B and end with an S. Like, I guess I could root for them. and then they lost to the Seahawks in the Super Bowl, and I was like, oh my,
got shellacked.
Yeah.
They got destroyed.
Asses handed to them.
Obliterated. I loved it.
Shit. I was so excited for that defense. As a Bears fan, that defense really had me excited and jealous and inspired.
That's all I wanted out of my team.
Me too.
That team had everything I wanted. They ran the ball so well. They had like the best defense. Like, that's all I wanted from the fucking Bears. Yeah. And they were just a disaster at that point. It was the Tressman era at that point. They were just a shit show. That Legion of Boom was a great like side hoe to have for a favorite team at that time. Like they were the ones that I was calling on the side. That was the Pizza Hut that was FaceTiming me at 10 p.m. You know, like
yes, sir.
Yeah, for sure, man. I visited Seattle for a friend's wedding, and I remember like driving down and seeing the stadium, and I never realized Seattle was very similar to San Francisco, where it's just you're going down all these different levels down to the ocean, and then you have the stadium like right there. It was like nothing like I ever expected, you know. But I was just so excited for the fans at the time because I just remembered what it was like to have a defense like that, you know, under the Lovie Smith era in 2005, 2006. And I was just so excited for them because it was just so fun to watch. Like, you just wish your team could be like that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, I've just got a couple start here. Like, I mean, Renewables saying swarming D, J-Rock saying hustle, Shorty, Nick, you're on the same page as me. I mean, this is what I'm talking about when we talk about those parallels. I cut that up to show this is exactly the same stuff that the Colts D's doing, that Lovey's D back with the Bears, that Monty Kiffin with the Bucks. This is the same type of parallel coaching.
Right.
Punch the ball out, try to strip it, play situationally. Look, I mean, you're watching Sherman there where, look, he can't get a hand on the ball as far as intercepting it, but I'll just tip it up so Earl can come over and snag it and find a way to come down with it. I mean, Cam Chancellor has many of those. It's the same idea of play smart, try to punch the ball out. It's not that different. And then we're going to kind of
hustle to the ball, many men on the ball at the same time. Just make something happen. Yeah.
So, I mean, just as kind of a cap to this ode to the Seahawks before we kind of go into the fundamentals and where the Bears tie into all this, for those that, and I love all the comments here about like that secondary is one of the best ever. Cheddarhead says, it's true. It's like,
it's true.
I hate to say it. I want to be very clear. I respect
fun to watch, man.
I respect Lovie Smith and the Bears defense. Love it to hell. I mean, Bears fan, I watched it. I didn't grow up. I was born in 92. I didn't get to watch 85 live with, everybody that was there. And so, I mean, to Leslie Frazier, to, Singletary Hampton.
Hold on a second. Do I look that old to you guys?
No, you don't. But
so, I mean, I was like a high school. I was like a senior in high school. I graduated in 93. You were born in 92?
I was born in 92, yeah.
97. I'm a baby.
Wow. I don't feel like the old man on this, but I guess I am.
It's to me the Seahawks defense was the best defense I've ever seen and witnessed. And to me, it really ushered in a decade of defensive dominance. And I'm going to kind of got a diatribe here. I've got to get into a script, if you will. But I want to just kind of put a cap on really what that defense was able to achieve. And, you're looking at it here with the Legion of Boom from 2011 to 2017, the number one scoring defense in 4 straight seasons, back to back.
Wow.
First in the NFL in points per game allowed, pass yards per game allowed, rush yards per game. Oh, they were just a good secondary. No. By the way, rush yards allowed per game, first passing touchdowns allowed. They just phenomenal.
I know they were so much
unbelievable.
They were.
I cannot begin to wax enough about how much this defense means to me. And I mean, Shorty, Nick, you guys know how much I love football and my philosophy and takes. The Legion of Boom fills so much of my interest in the game, the philosophy. Mm-hmm. Why was the defense that way? How did they get it that way?
I get it, man. I do.
We're going to dive deep into all of that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, Vaughn, you've been waiting patiently. I appreciate it. As I kind of get into it here, I want to show you and answer your question of what does a 4-3 defense look like with cover 3? And this is that. This is a 4-3. Now, in this case, they've actually brought some pressure up to the front where maybe I should share my screen here, and I will. It's going to get a little messy here for a second. I apologize, but I promise we'll make it work. So you guys can probably see that now, I presume.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so basis of a 4-3 cover 3 defense here is you're talking about, want to circle and focus on Earl Thomas here. That's your single high coverage. He is responsible for covering the middle of the field closed. Naturally, he is in the middle of the field. Your corners here on the outside thirds. What that means is that they are dropping here into a bubble. That is their zone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your defense, we're going to kind of show this up on actual plays, but you're talking about a one-gap defense.
Mm-hmm.
That means that your defensive line is responsible for filling one gap, penetrating up the field, causing havoc, playing the run to the pass if the QB were to get back there.
Mm-hmm.
Traditional cover 3, we have what are called hook zones. The idea is that your linebackers are here filling in the middle of the field. Mm-hmm. This is often a term that you'll hear coaches say, like, let's wad up the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have your curl to flat. The idea is that if for some reason the receiver were to run a little spot here, this linebacker, in this case it's Cam Chancellor, is dropping to that flat. He is dropping to the curl flat here. So what you end up having, I apologize, I know that's a ton of circles, but the idea is your corners here. Let me try to see if we can erase that a little bit. There we go. Your corners here are dropping so deep right here and right here that your outside these droppers are responsible for essentially covering this low window, kind of like a cover 2. You're covering up the middle with your linebackers here. And then you have pressure up the front. And the whole idea, as I wipe this all away, is that your rushers are now in position to play the run if indeed it's a run on early downs.
In the one gap.
Correct. Yeah. But we're not compromised if all of a sudden they want to boot this guy out.
Right.
And all of a sudden he's coming here into these hook zones. All of a sudden they want to run him deep on a post. The safety's got it, and you've got the cover 3 back here. Right. So I can kind of go into this the whole way through, but that is the general idea. And I apologize, I haven't had a chance to look at you at all throughout this. But that is the general idea of what a cover 3 defense is in the 4-3. So let me go ahead and stop sharing, jump back here.
Well, hold on. J2K is saying, wait, Seattle was a 2-gap defense, rather optional 1-2, but that was more to do with the defensive end, depending on the strong side of the line. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, to answer here,
well, that they were a 2-gap in the hybrid scheme, where they would slide the 4 over and bring like Irvin down to an edge rusher position.
Yeah, and I mean, as I kind of show that here a little bit, and I'll bring that up just a bit without the pen to it. The big kind of core function of the Seattle Legion of Boom defense is that 4-man front was often in an over front. What the over front means is that your 3-tech is positioned to the strong side of the play where the tight end is, or the strength of the formation. The big difference with the Bears defense now and the Eberflus defense, Lovie Smith, Monty Kiffin, is that they are known to run a 4-3 under scheme. That under scheme is just the opposite of that. It means your 3-tech is lining up on the weak side of the play, away from the tight end, away from the strength.
Right.
So that is the general concept of the cover 3, 4-3 defense. This is the bedrock of the Legion of Boom, how they made their money. You had, and I guess as we kind of fill it in here, your Errol Thomas was your deep middle third safety. Think of it as a true center fielder, has to have the range to truly get from the middle of the field to either sideline. Then you had your Cam Chancellor, your strong safety that was often playing close to the line, inserting himself in the run game and the run fit, would also destroy people coming across the middle of the field. And I mean, God rest his soul. One of the plays I showed on that was the Super Bowl hit on Demaryius Thomas. As I said, God rest his soul. But Demaryius Thomas had actually come out and said that he had suffered really irreparable damage from that hit from Cam Chancellor. Cam Chancellor was that vicious of a hitter that particular hit, amongst others, in that Super Bowl really wrecked him. And like I said, God rest his soul, he's unfortunately passed.
Awful. Man.
That is Cam Chancellor, and that is what he represented to this defense. And then you had partially what we were talking about is Nick Morrow and Bobby Wagner. You have these 2 athletic linebackers that are responsible for kind of covering up and wadding up the middle with these hook zones. And then you had these athletic rushers that their entire idea was to be a bull in a china shop and penetrate. And so that was kind of the general idea, the bedrock of it. And as J2K says here, he has 34 over, but the DNs, Michael Bennett talked about running a 2-gap scheme. Yeah, I mean, some of that happened later on, J2K, and we'll kind of talk about that. But
that was more of the hybrid.
Yeah, a little bit more of the hybrid. But this is, I mean, we're going to just talk about the general basis of it. And as I kind of show one other thing here, kind of we're not arguing here, J2K. I'm just trying to kind of educate people here. This is just a general play scheme of what the 4-3 defense looks like and when we talk about a 1-gap scheme. So the idea here, and I guess if we can, we're going to kind of get into my general talk here about, yes, if you will, my diatribe. So part of the idea of this cover 3, 4-3 defense, Legion of Boom, single high, middle of the field closed defense, is that the general idea, and this is, by the way, this is for all defense as a coaching term. If you ever hear this is accurate. It's often talked about in the coaching world that the coverage sets the front. Coverage is, in general, more important than rush. They obviously are the idea is to marry them together, but the rush and the pressure package is completely predicated around the secondary, the coverage. Because the coverage is ultimately dictating who's in zone, who's playing man, and whoever's got some freedom and responsibility and who can freely go after it, they can insert themselves into the pressure package. That's how we're determining who to blitz. But the coverage is really what sets the basis for that. And that's why we talk about the Legion of Boom. They were excellent on every level, but that secondary was really what people remember because that is the fundamental base of what this defense needs. Very similar to what we're seeing here with the Chicago Bears, where guess who they're drafting? They're drafting a corner and a safety to go with their expensive safety in Eddie Jackson and their former second-round pick, Jalen Johnson. They're not drafting an edge, second round. It's coverage sets the front. So as we're talking here, and I guess I'll try to do it one more time here, and apologies as I know it gets a little messy. It's like Matrix when I go share screen and it kind of goes into this situation where all of a sudden it goes into a bunch of them. So the general idea here, J2K, as we were kind of talking, it was the idea that you were saying it'd be 2-gap. So 2-gap literally means that, for example, this nose has to cover the A and the B. That isn't what we'd be seeing in Seattle for the most part, and it won't be what we're seeing here with the Bears. This single gap in general means that, for example, if the mic has to come up and fit, he fills outside here, the end fills the B gap. The 3 tech fills the end fills the C gap. 3 tech fills the B gap. Will fills the A. Nose fills the other A. End fills the outside, and then your bubble here. And this is the issue when you play too high. This is what I was saying. You're down 1 in the box. You're missing a player here to fill that role. That's why when we play the middle of the field close, the safety comes up and fills that bubble. That is the idea of the single 1 gap system, as opposed to really what you're seeing now with these odd fronts. You would actually end up moving, let's just say this tackle is actually your Danny Trevathan, your other linebacker. And what we're now seeing is we're asking players, can you play gap and a half? Can you hold this guy here? Your main gap is here. But if for some reason you need to, can you shuck him out here and fill this? That is called gap and a half. Can you hold it up here, clog this up, but also come up and shed it and stop it up here? That is the idea of gap and a half. That is what we're starting to see in the NFL with odd fronts, but it goes back to the general idea that...
Jordan, can I interrupt
Yes.
you really quick? I know exactly what you're talking about. I have to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
No, you're good. I know we
Body
both-
break.
Oh, are you done with the
Yeah, no, but we're good. You're good. Go.
Keep
go,
it
go,
up.
Go. So the general idea here is that what I'm trying to show the audience is that, one, it's a 1 gap system, and Nick, I want to shut up here so you can get any questions that you have about it or anything that you're interested in. But
You're good. Keep going.
as you can see, I love this shit. I get into it, but
Yeah.
the thing with that system is we're talking about that 1 gap penetrate. Really what's happening now, and it's interesting, I mean, this is why a guy like Sebastian Joseph Day, John Franklin Myers with the Jets, even guys like Eddie Goldman in some ways, they were asked to be this guy where, look, I need you to take space and hold a gap, but I also need you to be smart enough to where when you're actually engaged in a gap, I need you to look around a guy's helmet and see where the ball is going, so that even if you're meant to cover the A gap, if it starts going to your left, I need you to shed the block and then fit. And so that is really the idea of you are responsible for your gap, but in a moment's notice, if you're really smart, you understand gaps, you are a gap and a half. As opposed to what J2K is talking about is 2 gapping. That's the old 3-4 Pittsburgh, Blitzburgh, Casey Hampton, Haloti Ngata, Casey Hampton, Haloti Ngata, these big space eaters, Vita Vea, if you will, where they are eating 2 gaps. They're just there to eat space and let the linebackers roam. And that's J2K, as you're kind of talking here. You were saying, I thought the Seattle hybrid was asking the DN to 2 gap stack and shed on downs that you didn't know if it was pass or run, the secondary would be shifted and stack line. Yeah, I mean, some of that did happen, J2K, and that's what we're talking about, where guys like Michael Bennett, and we're going to talk about who he is, what he represented. That's a guy that had a very specific role and kind of played that gap and a half, 2 gap role, because he wasn't the Cliff Averill, wasn't this speedy edge. He was this guy that would beat you up and bruise you, but also hold ground. And so you would kind of see some of that. And J2K saying, but the box would hold the gaps, hold some 1 gap, 2 gap. Yeah. So
I apologize, guys. I'm 17 years older than you, Jordan. So
Cliff is saying,
Just wait, guys.
We've been sitting here for 2 hours. It happens.
and Cliff saying, for being 60, my bladder's in good shape. For younger guys, too.
for sure.
So that is really the Legion of Boom. That is, and trust me, we're not done here. What I've done now is set the floor, the baseline of what this defense was, what it was predicated around. Now I'm going to really start getting ready to show you where the Bears fit into all that. But before we get into it any further, Nick, Mr. Shorty, I've been doing all the talking. I want to give you the opportunity. If there's any thoughts you have, any questions, anything that I'm not clear on, I want to make sure that everybody's following along. I know it can be a little, minutia when we're talking about plays and gaps and roles and responsibilities.
I was just adding along to what J2K was saying, just about the difference between the 2 gap and the 1 gap systems, and how they ran such a hybrid version of it, which made them the Legion of Boom. They weren't just running the same 4-3 under all the time. They eventually started moving into the 4-3/3-4 hybrid 2 gap scheme, which is really what made them special. That's what made that defense so exciting, because they had that secondary. They could do whatever they wanted with the line. It was amazing.
Nick, you have anything you want to add here before I go on one final diatribe before we talk about Bears talk?
I'll keep it short and quick. I mean, this is kind of like a no shit Sherlock thing, but to run these specific defenses that require the the cover 2 defense, cover 3 defense, where you're kind of running like that certain coverage the entire time. You kind of need to have like certain personnel who are fit for that type of scheme, if you will. And the one thing that Pete Carroll had over a lot of people at the time was he just got done working at Stanford or whatever. So he had a lot of knowledge on like people coming into college, kids in high school going into college, and then so on and so forth. So he had a few years of kids who he was able to study on back in college on this is what he does well, this and this and that he's able to say, now can I take this guy and fit him into what I want to do in the NFL? Can he do like this cover 1/3 of the field in my cover 3 defense? Can this guy cover those flats and hooks, on the cover 3, so on and so forth? It's something that you can't do with just about anyone. But that's like I said, kind of a no shit Sherlock. Like, you obviously need certain talent for that, but I think coaching definitely has a big part of it too. Like, don't get me wrong, but like, you definitely need to know the talent you have when you're doing those type of defenses, because that's kind of why like they've shifted so much since like the 2015 era and stuff like that.
That's a good point. Coming from college, coming into the NFL, having an idea what he was looking for at the time, because he was a newer-ish head coach coming from college at that time. All those little things add up too. That's a good point.
Well, and I mean, Nick, you really kind of set me up here, because I promise, Barflies, we're going to get to the Bears talk about this aspect and why I mean, a couple weeks ago we talked about how the Bears are a few steps away from emulating what the Bills are doing. The only other team I really thought that they'd be emulating in some ways, some real close parallels, is the Seahawks. And I promise we're going to pay homage to that. But
easily.
Yeah, I really have to pay homage and celebrate the ubiquitous style of play that the Legion of Boom had. And so, I mean, when we talk about the Legion of Boom, and as kind of a filler as I rant here, we'll kind of show this cover 3, and I'll let
we can be talking about the Bears doing this in 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, and we'll show this here, this cover 3, as I kind of talk about it. But I mean, the Legion of Boom, to me, they defined a generation of football in the NFL. We're talking about, I mean, 10 years. It was 2003 before Pete Carroll was even in the NFL to 2014, when that was the last time that they had reached the Super Bowl, I believe. Maybe it was right after that, where obviously that was the game that Malcolm Butler intercepted Russell Wilson at the end of the game. But I mean, this is a play style that is really so renowned, so celebrated, so ubiquitous in the league, that Pete Carroll in many ways achieved something that I'd be curious. I guess you could say Vic Fangio's kind of gotten close to that with Staley and Evero and things like that. But he created something that usually we're not seeing unless it's an offensive coach, which is an NFL coaching tree completely off of Pete Carroll.
Right.
That's very true.
That's Robert Saleh. That's Dan Quinn. That's Gus Bradley. That's Chris Richard.
Right.
There's just name after name after name from this system. It's still being ran by the Jets with Robert Saleh and DeMeco Ryans in that forefront. Now the game has changed.
The Cowboys.
But yeah, Dan.
I have a question for you when you're done.
No, please go ahead. I'll take breaks in between.
Who would you insert your Bears players in this defensive front?
You're gonna cut a spoiler for people.
You're like, sorry, that's another half an hour.
No. I mean, I will. Okay, I'll give you the names, but then I promise we're gonna kind of talk about why those guys are. It's Robert Quinn, it's Travis Gibson at your ends, it's Justin Jones and Kyrus Tonga at your 3 tech and your nose. It's Bobby Wagner is your Roquan Smith, and Nick Morrow is your Malcolm Smith. Your corners are Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon for the Byron Maxwell, Richard Sherman. Earl Thomas is Eddie Jackson. Cam Chancellor is Jaquan Brisker.
Thank you.
No problem. Sorry, I promise I'll get it.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yeah. Just for Bears fans, we want to insert there. What are these players in this? Right?
Yes. And so, I mean, we kind of talk about that. He created that coaching tree, but we're talking about from 2003 to 2014. His defense led the way to 2 national titles at college football at USC. That was the Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, Taylor Mays, Brian Cushing, Ray Malaluga, Everson Griffin, Mike Patterson, all the great players that came from USC during that time. He led that team to 2 national championships as the head coach, and then ultimately a Super Bowl with the Seahawks, all while just having complete domination on the defensive side of the ball, not just at USC, but ultimately when he came into the league as the Seahawks head coach. His famed style of play, as I'm kind of showing here, it's a base 4-down line system. That is an even front 4-down lineman. What you're coming to expect here, as I'm showing it on the graphic, is the bedrock, the foundation of this defense is a lot of cover 3, a lot of cover 1, where I've told you that that's shifted and changed a little bit. And I guess I'll bring it up here real quick as I kind of jump back into the diatribe here in a second. Is let me share my screen and show you the real key differences.
Just to stop you one more time. In this defense, can you go back to that image?
Yeah.
Who is the top curl to flat, the one at the top of the screen? Who's the bottom curl to flat, the players?
Sure. So this is Cam Chancellor. Let me get my pen. Sorry, I'm over here drawing without it. This is Cam Chancellor. This is your strong safety walked up.
Gotcha.
This is
just for the rest of the audience to understand. Yeah.
Yeah, this is your sandbacker.
Yeah. Okay. Then you got your 2 linebackers in the middle there, the hook zones.
Yeah. So this is the general defense. Now, traditionally, what I've told you that there's some evolution that's gone on. And the reason why is this is how important Pete Carroll played of a role to the NFL. NFL offense is the wide zone that everybody can't shut up about that they love, was literally came to prominence as a way to defeat this defense. Because the issue here is that you have these hook zones that are sitting here, they're sitting here, and then the curl flats are down here to this bubble up here, bubble up here, bubble down here.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're just going to end up rolling him right over across while he takes the middle safety with a post.
Mm-hmm.
Your Earl has to follow that over here. This hook defender gets deeper than the linebackers. Quarterback drops it in. Bingo right here.
Mm-hmm.
That is literally what broke this defense and forced the NFL to go too high. So when we talk about
kills it too.
Yes. Now, really, I mean, something that we're starting to really see come back into the league is I want to just do me a favor here. Act like Cam Chancellor is not here. We're going to play too high. Let's act like this is Cam Chancellor.
Uh-huh.
What's really started to happen now is we're seeing a lot of quarters. So quarters is level here, level here, level here, level here. That's cover 4.
Right.
What's going on now is we may send a vertical. Maybe we'll have him kind of come out here on a wheel route. And you're getting this receiver running a 15 to 18-yard dig.
Mm-hmm.
And it's deeper than these zones here, but it's shorter and more shallow than the deep quarters play. And this 15-yard dig is literally what Matt Stafford made his money on with the Rams last year, going to OBJ on the backside of 3-by-1 formations and trips.
Nice.
So that is really the new evolution of the NFL. That's what you're starting to see. Instead of these crossers that are somewhat shallow, where just short enough to beat this middle of the field closed, now you've got it to where we've got different simulated pressures where this guy's coming here, this guy's coming here, we're dropping him deep here. This defensive tackle is actually dropping here. It's creating a lot of different fronts, having these outside linebackers and these defensive linemen in these odd fronts. So we've really had to evolve to let's get deeper and more explosive plays with the dig that's deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that said, I said that this defense has evolved a little bit from what I've kind of been showing you. The big thing here is when you're talking about even Eberflus, and a lot of this applies to Chicago Bears, is when you're seeing these middle of the field closed look where the safety is down low. This was Andrew Sendejo last year. It was Kari Willis. This is who I expect Jaquan Brisker is going to be as he comes down and plays in the box, as he's said so many times he likes to do.
Mm-hmm.
The way that the NFL has adjusted to this in large part is they still show, we're going to act like Cam Chancellor's not here. They still show this too high look. Now, cover 3 weak buzz, in general, you would typically, because this is the weak side here, you would actually always rotate the weak side. This was that cover 3 match, Rip Liz, you're always rotating the weak safety. But regardless, your weak safety ultimately comes down, and this is called a buzz, where essentially he, after the snap, will buzz down to the middle of the field and essentially rob these middle routes if anything were to happen in there, while everybody else is playing cover 3. Zone here, zone here, zone here. That is essentially cover 3 weak buzz. Now, in this very modern Saban-esque world, you're occasionally having like Meg. This is literally man everywhere he goes. So this is man, but everybody else is zone dropping. I don't mean to bore everybody too much. That is one thing is cover 3 buzz.
Well, it's important to note because it's not just because it's a zone doesn't mean there can't be a man.
Correct.
Right, within there, which is important to note.
And that's the thing is when we're talking about middle of the field close, you're either seeing that cover 3 Seattle weak cover 3 buzz to really close off that dig and those crossers that beat the Seattle scheme originally. The other way to deal that, as I said, the gold standard is man. So we're literally manning this up where man, he's coming off the edge where he's dropping. And then it's literally a single high, and this is cover 1 robber to where essentially, I guess in this case, he would be the man, he would be your robber. And this is what we call a rat in the hole. So you're talking about a robber when the safety is coming down from deep to cover the middle of the field. That is the cover 3 weak buzz. What we're talking about here is this general idea of a rat in the hole, which is essentially coming down here where this linebacker drops here and places. This is what Darius Leonard was able to really kind of destroy people on, and that is a cover 1 robber where everybody is playing man. And then you have a linebacker dropping into the zone and playing the rat in the hole here. Hopefully that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the long and short of the evolution of what happened in the NFL to basically overcome the NFL. We're talking about creating conflict, beating what's going on. Okay, everybody's going to Legion of Boom is special. They're playing this hard ball. It's taking everything away. How do we beat it? We're going to force the deep safety to be wrong. We're going to put a post here, hit a crosser underneath. We beat them. All of a sudden, the world adapts. We make 2 high defenses. All of a sudden, the 15-yard dig. Okay, how do we still stop that middle the field attack? Let's buzz somebody down or rob the route. That is kind of how we've adapted. That's what the 49ers are doing. That's what Zimmer was doing in Minnesota. That's what Cleveland's doing. All these teams that are still running the 4-man fronts.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that is the take there. I know. I'm sorry. I know I'm going deep. I was going to be a little
No. Seriously, your breakdown of this is awesome. It really is.
Very, very easy to digest as well.
Yeah, and you're helping people that don't quite understand how this works to understand a little bit better because there's so many nuances to it.
Yeah. So as I was kind of saying, this fame style of play, base 4-down lineman, even front. You were going to see a healthy diet of these single high coverages. Now, mind you, a lot of what I'm telling you is before they introduced this robber and these buzz techniques, you were just going to see a lot of cover 3 high, middle of the field closed, or cover 1, which was a lot of man, and then a single high safety. The ultimate ideas I've been talking about is that tried to deny anything in the middle of the field and trust it. This is really why I love this defense, why I have Twitter threads I can show about what I really wanted more than anything when we went away from Fangio and the old scheme was, can we please get back to middle of the field closed 4-down linemen? And I know that a lot of people are like, why? That's an old system, too high. I get it. Too high has its values. But this is the real difference. Too high, the Fangio scheme, do not get me wrong. 2018 Bears was the highest level of it. When it is running at that level, it is better than anything I'm about to show you. Yes, it is even better than the Legion of Boom. The problem with that system...
Hence Eddie Jackson getting back to form.
Yes. The problem with that system is that it is completely predicated on sleight of hand and confusion and illusion of what you're seeing. The quarterback, when they're turning around for play action, the safeties are rotating. We have sim pressures where all of a sudden you thought Khalil Mack was coming. He's dropping, but Roquan Smith is coming. And it's mayhem. And when it's coached well and everybody understands the techniques, there's nothing better. The problem is, though, is it is incredibly specialized. That means that you need to have a safety that's super witty and knows how to trick and deceive quarterbacks, Eddie Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have a safety that understands his responsibility when all of a sudden they're rolling down and Amos is able to fill the run. You need to have backers that know the responsibilities and fitting the run, but also covering. You need to have good, exquisite pressure packages. You need to have defensive ends that can drop. You can see all of the different specialized levels. It's great. It's wonderful. It also is the exact reason why the defense looks like shit when Eddie Jackson falls off, when Adrian Amos is gone, when Khalil Mack is hurt, when you don't have your nose tackle, Eddie Goldman, playing at the best. It's literally that crucial where every role has a very specific thing. It breaks down if you don't have it.
Side
Absolutely.
note, Adrian Amos leaving the Packers. What, 3 interceptions on the Packers, 2 of them against the Bears?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so the difference in why I was really crazy.
Yeah.
The reason why I was championing this idea of please can we get back to this middle of the field, the closed cover 3, cover 1, 4 down lineman scheme is that, and if you're going to take anything from this, I'm literally going to give you the reason why this system worked. It's yes, cover 3 is cool, and the 4 down lineman, I gave you the bedrock of what they were doing. That was what they were doing, but it's not how they were doing it. That's the difference.
Right.
As I just told everybody what was so cool about the Fangio scheme of you're deceiving players and doing such specialized things. The entire defense of the Seattle Seahawks was predicated upon simply putting the best athletes on the field, telling them to play fast, using their instincts. And because you're betting on having the better athletes, you're simply asking every man, just win your one-on-one matchup.
Exactly. Play fast, play without thinking.
Yeah, that's literally it. Defensive line.
Beat us.
It's one. Yeah, defensive line. It's one gap. Can you just go one-on-one and just beat your guy? You're a better athlete. Just beat him.
Exactly.
Hey, Richard Sherman. Richard Sherman. You're smart. You're tall. You're taller than the other guy. You're just as fast. Can you beat your man one-on-one? You're on an island. Do it.
Right.
That is the entire basis of this defense. What does that matter for the Bears? That is literally the same thing that Matt Eberflus has been talking about. Where effort, hits, play fast, got to know the scheme. What is his? I mean, he's got the man's
play without thinking, run to the ball. Try.
Yeah,
I forgot I was going to wear my Peanut Tillman jersey tonight to promote the Peanut Punch.
The man has so many acronyms. He's got one recently. I'm trying to remember. It's your accountability and scheme. It's some other one that he's recently come up with, but it's the general idea of playing instinctively fast, knowing the plays, just be an athlete, don't give up, play hard. That is how this defense succeeded, despite being a relatively simple. And that's, by the way, how it still succeeds. That's why the Niners were in so deep in the playoffs. That's why their defense caused a ton of issues for Justin Fields in that game. I know we got close, but it still wins that way. Right. It's the difference of, do you want to win with a very fancy, complicated defense
where everyone has to think so much that they can't play?
Yes.
Or one that they can just see ball, run the ball, hit their seams, hit their gaps, play within their defense without even thinking. Just these are my assignments. Do it. It's either 1 or 2.
Yep.
It's more simplified. Makes everyone run the ball faster. It makes the ball come out more. It causes more turnovers. It gets everyone jacked up. That the plays. I'm so excited. Sorry.
No, you're good. So, I mean, that is really so. This cover 3, cover 1 tries to deny anything in the middle of the field. Trust the best athletes on the perimeter. Let them win their one-on-one matchups. In cover 1, as I've talked about, every defender is playing man with one deep high safety playing a zone. Cover 3, defenders are expected to shrink and expand in their zones as the routes are distributing down the field. We've talked about that. You have some low zones, some hook zones, middle deep thirds, all that good stuff. As I've talked about, football coaches like to say that coverage dictates the front. As I've tried to kind of make this layman terms, the structure of a given coverage informs how many rushers a defense can have and what techniques the defense need to execute up front. And that single high defense is what we were talking about. Defensive linemen are able to play straight up in what is called that one gap defense. Every player has one responsibility against the run of the pass. This whole idea, as we've talked about, and this is what we just hammered on, shrinking the player's focus enables all 11 players to get to the ball and to know their coverage responsibility at full speed.
Think less, do more.
Exactly. Literally. Spot on, Shorty. Spot on.
Thank you. Thank you, Cliff. So are you.
And so, as you say here, you're a nice guy, Shorty. So as we go on here, I've talked about how simple this scheme is.
Good question, though, Richard. Yeah.
Very good question.
Yeah. Are we athletic enough at 3 technique? Well, we're going to talk about that. I mean, you're literally kind of. I love this. Why I love this show. Is why I love the Barflies. You guys are almost like leading me to where we're going.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone here in chat is all so well thought and organized, and they know what they're talking about, and that's kind of like that's kind of what brings you here, right, Nick?
Yeah.
It's
yes,
like,
sir.
And what brought me here too. It's just having some love and knowledge of this game that you can talk this. This is Thank you again, Jordan. This is awesome.
No, of course. I mean, so the idea is I've talked about this simple defense in kind of functionality. To thrive in it, we talked, Shorty, you really kind of hammered this home. The coverage needs to be, the secondary needs to be perfect. Coverage defenders need to win their individual matchups. We've talked about that, winning one-on-one, having enough range. That's why Seattle invested in these big, tall corners, enough range and zone coverage to deny those long, deep balls along the seam. That's why, hey, you're out there alone on an island on your zone, but you need to be athletic enough, fast enough to be able to really play it.
Right.
Okay. And then as we kind of talk about, I mean, this is the sad part about it. This is my kind of ode and saying goodbye to it is we're a decade away now. Literally every member of that Seahawks defense is gone.
Wow. Crazy.
Sherman is in the booth. Bobby Wagner just went to the Rams. Earl Thomas is out of the league.
Wow.
I mean,
yesterday. Wow.
Cam Chancellor was retired, unfortunately, due to medical issues with his neck.
Yeah, that sucked.
Cliff Averill, same thing. Michael Bennett's out of the league. I mean, everybody's gone.
Yeah.
Brandon Browner, Byron Maxwell. It's sad. So, I mean, part of that, though, is that as much as we understand that these great players are what helped make the scheme iconic, I want to really hammer in, though, that as great as it was with the coaching, with the player identification on who needs to run it, it still all comes back to Pete Carroll. He's the guy that really built this defensive system. And I've said it's not even – everybody thinks it's just Seattle. Go back to the USC days where the players that they had at corner and safety and everything else that was going on. And, I mean, this goes back to the idea, too, of and this is where we're talking about. I've said the Bears can potentially – there's a lot of parallels going on here. The Bears are entering a new time with a new coach and a new GM, just as Seattle back in the day, Pete Carroll, John Schneider entering in. And I've kind of got a little interesting, and I should have pulled up the article here, but I will kind of read to you a little bit of a draft review on this is the team. And mind you, I tell you this because a lot of the media right now wants to shit on Ryan Poles and what the Bears are doing, and this is a lot of parallels to the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, hold on. A lot of the media wants to shit on Ryan Poles right now because he didn't seem excited enough in his press conference.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
He was mean to us. How dare he?
Exactly.
He didn't look interested enough. Gee, this is the problem with the Chicago media. It's like
they're entitled.
My God, exactly.
They're so entitled, bro. But they're dickheads in their articles. So what? You just want the staff to be nice to them at all times while you go and say this team is gonna go 5-11 to be terrible. Fuck out of here.
And they ask their questions like such condescending pricks. Like, what do you envision? Like, what are your thoughts on what are your? It's so just. I'm sick of hearing. I want to hear new. Give me a media pass, please. Let me ask some questions. I'm going to ask him like a real person asking a real question, and not some, like you said, entitled media member that lives in Chicago and lives in a 3-flat down by by Wrigley Field. It's kind of this is what makes the whole podcast world so much more interesting, because you start to get real fans' perspectives and people that can join us and have real conversations about this and not have to be stuck up in this mini rant.
No, you're okay.
About the Chicago media is just the worst. It's I don't even know what New York is like. I can imagine it's probably worse, but
it's probably just as bad.
It's probably just as bad. It probably isn't worse, but I can't imagine it being worse than Chicago. Just an entitled, cushy job. Like, they're just all stuck in their little cushy jobs, asking the same boring, stupid ass questions. Sorry, I'm done.
No, you're okay.
If I can just say, Larry Mayer has worked for the Chicago Bears for 1,000,000 years. If you go on to his Larry Mayer comment section on the Bears, he pulls up anyone that sends questions into his mailbag. He turns around and asks or answers the stupidest ones. What number did Walter Payton wear? Oh, great question. Well, Walter Payton wear the number 34 from 1975 to 1987 when he retired with. Come on.
Yeah.
Let's take a real question. Sorry, I'm done. Go ahead.
No. You're okay. And I promise I'm getting to the end here where we can talk about ultimately the comparison, the parallels that I want to draw. But I mean, as we kind of put a close to this, the Seahawks, everything we've talked about, I just want to kind of touch on. I mean, I really think it's important to stress the difference between a 4-3 and a 3-4, and that you guys, Shorty, Nick, understand. I mean, J2K has been awesome in the chat. So many other people talking about. I mean, somebody had mentioned it's a 4-3 is player focused, a 3-4 scheme focused, and I mean, this is the reality of kind of what happened today. The reason I bring this up is because I would love to tell you this is going to make a mega star video where everybody's going to see it. It's probably not, but the reality is I understand there could be a lot of naysayers saying, do you understand what you're asking for? Do you understand that you are trying to move into yesteryear with this defense? And part of what I really believe is that you need to be a step ahead, and the league is cyclical. We are currently in a 3-4-2 high system. Eventually, we are going to move back where the whole idea is, Nick, we were talking about this last week when you were in the chat. Punish that 2 high defense. Run it up their gut. Run it at the bubble. Pound them to force them to move a safety down. And we are going to be heading that way. But I understand you're going to have some naysayers that, and this is kind of what I want to talk about, is this cover 3 system largely has kind of, in some ways, fallen obsolete. It's had to shift and change because it ultimately led to the NFL coaches, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, developing the best cover 3 and cover 1 beater concept, as I've told you, with the dig routes and the crossers. And it's led to the 2 high system. As we kind of talk about what that means, the 3-4 defense with more 2 high shell looks, it's really become the thought leader of the NFL's modern scheme, with Vic Fangio being the grandpa of it, if you will, the guy that's really kind of ushered that in, with Brandon Staley, the Chargers head coach, Packers defensive coordinator Joe Barry, Broncos defensive coordinator Ejiro Evero, Vikings defensive coordinator Ed Donatello. It's freaking everywhere right now. And that entire scheme, I'm showing you the 4-3, but just to kind of channel everybody back to what the 2018 was, the 2018 3-4 scheme, you're really expecting your outside linebackers, Khalil Mack, which is why he was such a valuable piece, and it was Leonard Floyd back then, getting guys that really force and contain the edge. They really, stiffen and solidify the edge and then force everything back inside. And that is what allows you playing that 50 front, where you have a linebacker on the outside shade of every guy up into where it's essentially a bear front. That's also why it's kind of ironic that it was here.
Exactly.
But I mean, really, the core function of the 3-4 scheme is that it really allows, and this is what we're talking about, the more complicated play, you're allowing more interplay between the interior and edge defenders with sim pressures and creepers, as well as the linebackers and safety at the 2nd and 3rd levels. And that very sophisticated multiplicity allows you a lot of freedom, but it takes a ton of effort and focus. And I understand that you're going to have a lot of people that say, look, why don't we just stick with the times and go with that? But I also really want to talk about why I don't think it's as easy as just running that. And that's what I actually think is going to be the downfall of it, is you're going to have a lot of defenses that try this and they don't have the personnel and don't have the right brains to it, if you will, to actually execute it the right way. So as we kind of go down here, I close up with this because as I got you on a little rant there about the media.
Sorry, I like to go on rants.
No. I want to remind.
Good for the soul.
Absolutely.
I want to remind the chat, and I mean you guys too, about just kind of. J2K Ed Donatello was a great secondary coach. Yeah, he's fantastic. Jordan, it's Coach saying, Jordan, how do you beat too high? You run the ball. Yes, that whole idea is you force the safety to come down in the box, then you hit him over the top, and hit an explosive play on him. That is kind of the general gist of it. So the last thing I want to talk about is, as we talk about a lot of the things that have been going on in the media, is that this draft in many ways didn't address helping your young quarterback, didn't get offensive line until later in the draft, didn't get a receiver until the 3rd round. Oh my God, the Bears blew it. I want to just kind of show people or talk to people about what the Seahawks, this is another parallel, about the shit that they were getting when they were actually building what would become that dominance that I showed you on a little cut up earlier. And even just a more modern look at how one draft class, if you're doing it right, really changes the fortunes of your team for at least the next 5-10 years. And
this could be the one too.
Yeah. And I mean, let me give you an example. The New Orleans Saints just recently had I think it was 2019 maybe. It was just a true slam dunk of a draft class where they drafted Marshawn Lattimore, 1st round, 11th pick, starting corner, top corner, starting right tackle, one of the highest paid right tackles in the game, Ryan Ramczyk, in the last pick of the 1st round. Marcus Williams, one of the best safeties that just got a mega deal from Baltimore, 2nd round. Alvin Kamara, running back, 3rd round. Alex Anzalone, linebacker who's been at a bunch of different places in the 3rd round. Trey Hendrickson, who was one of the best defensive linemen for the Cincinnati Bengals last year. And then funny enough, they actually drafted Al-Qadim Muhammad in the 6th round. That was the Saints draft in 2019 that really, truly transformed their franchise. They're a team that doesn't pick a lot of draft picks, but when you're hitting on the right guys, it's literally bared them fruits where they have a corner, a right tackle, had a safety, one of the most exciting running backs in the league, defensive ends that have gone on to play elsewhere. And then the one that I really want to bring, because this is a Seattle talk, is the Bleacher Report. You guys can look this up. It was Bleacher Report back in the day. The writer was Donald Wood. And he had a funny quote, and he had actually talked about how Russell Wilson was the worst pick of that draft, funny enough. But he gave the Seattle Seahawks an F. And the draft that we're referring to is, and I understand because this is the John Schneider thing of like, why would they take this guy? They was Rashad.
His rookie year when he kicked our ass, he came on in the end of that game and we were winning, and he came back and won it for us. Was like, so frustrating.
And that's the thing. When you were talking about John Schneider, this is the guy that everybody goes, what are they doing? They took Rashad Penny, James Carpenter, Jordan Brooks, Bruce Irvin was the one that really set that off. This draft was considered to be an F by some, and really people were like, what the hell are they doing? So they had just signed Matt Flynn. Tavares Jackson was there at quarterback. They decided to draft Bruce Irvin in the 1st round, 15th overall. People were wondering what the hell were they doing. Bruce Irvin was just recently on the Bears. He's had a pretty solid career. Bobby Wagner was their 2nd-round pick, one of the best linebackers of the last decade. Short, undersized linebacker from Utah State. People were wondering what the hell were they doing there.
How tall is he?
Is he 6 foot? I think he's 5'11", 6 foot.
I can look that up.
Kind of the first examples of these young, short linebackers and what are they doing? What is going on here? 3rd round, drafted a guy named Russell Wilson.
241.
Yep. And he moved sideline to sideline like with the best of them. And then you have Russell Wilson in the 3rd round, quarterback out of Wisconsin, who ended up starting as a rookie and beat out their highly paid free agent quarterback Matt Flynn. Drafted Robert Turbin, running back in the 4th round. Jay Howard, defensive end, D tackle, 3-tech out of Florida. Corey Toomer, linebacker. Jeremy Lane, nickel cornerback. Winston Guy, free safety, 6th round. J.R. Sweezy, a defensive lineman that then transferred over to offensive lineman and has been in the league for many years. So with that F grade, the last thing I have to give you is what John Schneider at the time had talked about recently as they were actually going into the draft, where the Seattle hasn't picked as high as they have in this past last year in that many years, because this is how long it took with that one good draft class. It finally dried out this year when they traded Russell Wilson and are kind of blowing it up and starting over. But GM John Schneider at the time had said, we overdrafted a pass rusher. That was Bruce Irvin. We drafted a linebacker that didn't have any instincts, Bobby Wagner. We drafted a quarterback that didn't fit the height mold, Russell Wilson. We overdrafted a nickelback, Jeremy Lane. We overdrafted a 3rd down running back, Robert Turbin. We converted a defensive lineman to an offensive lineman, J.R. Sweezy, who's still playing or was last year for those who are keeping track.
Nice.
This is what this team, this draft class, this GM head coach pairing, everything that we've been building up to as we get to the Bears portion of this. I hope that and Shorty, Nick, bail me out here if I'm not drawing the comparisons of the parallels of what the Bears have going on with the Seahawks in drafting these guys of like, what are they doing? Why are they taking this Robert Turbin guy? I mean, for those that aren't familiar, Richard Sherman was like a 5th round pick. He was a receiver coming out of Stanford. They transferred him over to corner. Cam Chancellor was this 6'3", 230 strong safety that many people thought should move down to linebacker. They picked him in the 5th round. KJ Wright, I think, was a 4th or 5th round pick. Malcolm Smith was a low round pick. The best pick from the Legion of Boom was Earl Thomas, and he was a 1st rounder. That was kind of the idea of it.
Do you remember the cornerback that the Bears drafted, like, I don't know, within the last 4 years? He was very similar to a Richard Sherman. I can't remember his name because he was gone, I think, after I don't even think he made the team, but he was a tall, lanky, he was a very Richard Sherman-like cornerback who I think played some wide receiver before that as well. So everyone kind of compared him to the next Richard Sherman. And I thought there was, I can't remember his name. I'm sorry.
You're okay. I wish I could remember.
If Dan Aguirre was here, he'd probably get it nailed for me. But
freaking Dan.
I'm older than him, so cut me some slack. But
I
And also, he didn't stick, and he didn't even make the team. But he was a draft pick who was like in the mold of Richard Sherman. He was like 6'2", 6'3", 215 pounds or something. And I had a lot of hope that he was going to be something similar to that. I don't know why I'm going on that little diatribe.
No, that's okay.
He reminds me of someone that when they drafted him, I thought he could have panned out to be something like that.
Well, and as you kind of bring me to, I don't want to say the final part of this, but we're going to get into kind of the meat and bones, the final end of this before we wrap this up. I know it's getting late for everybody, but the general idea in Seattle, J2K brought up a good point here. Seattle got lucky when they got
Tolliver. Yes, thank you.
Yes. LSU.
Tolliver.
Kevin
Yes.
Tolliver.
Yes.
J2K has brought up a good point. Seattle got lucky when they got Marshawn Lynch. Buffalo was done with him. I mean, this is where I just want to remind people, like, Marshawn Lynch, as great as he was a very high pick out of California, Berkeley, playing with Aaron Rodgers. California, Oakland guy, went over to Buffalo, New York, Western New York, hated the cold, had a shitty early time in his career, got traded to the Seahawks, and
Blew
up. So
yeah, that awesome run. That was like, I'll never forget that run. It was like the
Beast Quake.
Yeah. Awesome run, man. Barreled over like 12 guys or something. It was so fun to watch. It was awesome.
And Cliff, you're saying 142. I know. I apologize. I promise. My hope is to wrap this up in the next 20 minutes.
I'm on the same time zone. I'm on the same time zone as you, Cliff. So I hear you.
Shorty, I'm sorry.
But
I know.
I love. I'm having a great time. Don't take this. Don't take that negatively. I'm happy to do this. This is
sure.
I love it.
I can talk Bears all damn night.
Well, and this is. I know we've been doing a lot of everything but talking Bears for the last hour. We're going to get into the Bears parallels now. So, just as a very simple reminder, not calling Bobby Wagner, I'm not calling Roquan Smith Bobby Wagner, not calling Justin Fields Russell Wilson. Simply the parallels. We are not at the production yet. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we ain't there yet.
But I want to show ultimately what we're going to get into. How can you possibly say that the Bears are so close to becoming what Seattle had with the Legion of Boom and with that era of football? So we're going to go offense to defense. So as you're looking here, we're doing this all by RAS because
Russ got big ass hands.
Yeah, and Justin has kind of small. Everybody talks about you need 9-inch hands, and he's barely over 9.
Shit, Justin's got hands like me. What the hell? How is he slinging it?
Yeah. And I mean, so that's the thing is, as we go through this, you're just as a heads up to everybody still tuning in, everything from here on out is going to be RAS. The reason for that is we talked about it, this whole team. And for those that aren't familiar with Pete Carroll and the Seahawks, there's literally signs in the building that say, like, I'm in, you slap them on the way in and out of the building. I'm in. The whole mantra is compete. That's why Russell Wilson was given the starting job as a rookie, despite paying a bunch of money to Matt Flynn. The entire system is very similar to Eberflus. Best players play fast, play hard, competition. I don't give a damn if you're Tevin Jenkins in a second-round pick or if you're this guy. We'll bring in a street free agent. He can take your job if you're not playing up to snuff. So that is the realistic situation with why I think RAS is important here because, yes, we can talk all day and night, and I will – Shorty, Nick, if you have anything you'd like to add, I can do it too. I can certainly talk about play style, and we'll start here with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, but – why we talk about play style, anybody's welcome to go watch Russell Wilson highlights, Justin Fields highlights. We'd be here 7 hours if I cut up highlights of all these comparisons. But the idea is I want to show you the athletic mold. We can talk a little bit about play style. And simply put, if you could draw a parallel, then I've done my job of achieving you to see how close everything is. It's really eerily similar between these early Seahawks periods to where the Bears are now. So as we kind of start here, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, obviously some of these are a little hard. COVID years, Justin Fields didn't have much, just working on a few measurements. For example, like his 40 was that 4.46 and he was stumbling. He didn't participate in many of the other things. But the general idea here is I very much feel like the common comparison you often hear with Justin Fields is he's kind of like Dak Prescott. And there's some of that. But to me, the guy I see is Russell Wilson. I see a bigger Russell Wilson, which that's the special part. Russell Wilson.
Yeah,
Nick, I'd love you to talk about this because you're spot on with it, and I agree. But the big problem with Russell Wilson and these short quarterbacks is they have limitations. That is what's so special about Justin Fields to me is you're getting a lot of the same player, but in the bigger frame that eliminates those issues. So, like, I could say it for you, but Nick, I want to shut up and get a drink of water here. You tell me, what is the glaring issue with Russell Wilson, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray? These short
they can't see over the middle.
Thank you. That is
Go routes and out routes is all they can throw.
That
Good
is
luck making that sustainable for 10 years.
Yeah.
That is the problem, is that when you have these shorter quarterbacks, they do not see their passing lanes over the offensive line in front of them. So they tend to say, screw it, I don't want to even risk what's going on over the middle. You know what I can see? I can scramble out, hit the outside, and hit DK or hit Tyler Lockett or Jermaine Kearse or any of these other guys outside of the numbers.
Right.
That is how they make their money. Justin Fields gives you middle of the field throws, deep outs, deep seams. He does it all. Can run the same way. That's why I'm saying in many ways I look at this guy very similarly to Russell Wilson, but you're getting the elevated version of him. When you talk about play styles, and as I said, we could be here hours doing the actual film. You viewers, if you're interested, go do the film yourself. Go look at Russell Wilson. The play style is this. It's touchdown to check down. It's rather than check down, oftentimes I use my feet to scramble and get out of the pocket and get out of trouble. And I make magic with my feet. And I have a beautiful deep ball that if you give me enough time and I make enough magic, I drop bombs. And oh, by the way, I've been Superman my whole life. So even when it looks shitty, I will just scramble around and try to make magic happen. And oftentimes it'll work, but when it doesn't, I'm going to take a huge sack and really screw up the drive. That is Russell Wilson's play style. Does that sound? I want honest opinion. This is Shorty.
That's pretty much Justin.
Yeah, it's all about dropping the ball in the breadbasket. I mean, when you're running that no matter what route, like especially a deep like a go route, right? You want that ball just to fall right into the breadbasket, and you see, like, you can't compare Justin to Cam Newton because Cam Newton had way too much of a frozen rope throw. Even when he was throwing it deep, it just kind of didn't have the arc on it, right? That it needed to.
Yep.
Not as strong as Justin.
Right, and even compare Trubisky, he kind of had a problem with that in the beginning, putting that nice arc on the ball. Yeah, but the thing that these two the comparison that these two have for me is they both have a beautiful ball. I mean, they throw a beautiful ball, both of them.
Yeah.
I mean, you watch. That's why you can compare him to Wilson, because Wilson, you watch him drop back and throw the ball. It's a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
And you watch the same thing with Fields. He drops
dime.
back. Yeah. He throws the ball. It's all about the flick off of the, like when you're throwing the ball and it
last
has to come
contact from the
it
finger.
has to come off your wrist, and then the last contact off of that last finger. And when you're coming through with the ball, you want to corkscrew it almost. You want to be able to throw that to get that spin out and corkscrew it off the tip of your fingertips.
That's how it gets tight.
Yeah,
that's how it's
that's
tight.
what it does. Yeah, and I have some clips that I'm working on for upcoming Bears Country that shows this, and because I'm going to go deep in the Justin Fields thing, because I mean, our first, as far as I'm concerned, is our first quarterback, and it's the first quarterback in my lifetime that we can talk about like this. I mean, we could have speculated with Trubisky. We could have hoped Trubisky couldn't throw. There was a certain one or two passes he could not throw the ball correctly. He just overthrew them, underthrew them, threw the ball out of bounds. We don't have that with Fields. Like, he has that precision, beautiful touch on his ball, that much like Wilson.
And Bare Truth and Cliff have got it spun out here, like bigger, faster, stronger. Cliff, yeah, it's much more of a Kanye song. It's just, it's bigger, faster, stronger. And I mean,
when I heard that he like idolized Cam Newton, I was like, oh no, please don't do that. And then when he was like, and Russell Wilson, I was like, yeah, okay, let's go Russell Wilson. No Cam Newton, Russell Wilson.
I liked Cam.
I liked Cam too, but he just didn't have that. He had too much laser on the ball. It's like his. I always viewed it like his
throws.
Yeah, I always viewed it like his hands were so big that they encompassed the ball, almost like you were, like if you were trying to throw a baseball, that far. Like it would come off your hand differently because your hand is encompassing the entire ball. And I feel like
kind of how like Baker and Patrick Mahomes kind of throw the ball a little bit. Like they're just like solid darts all the way through. Yeah. But Patrick is a lot more better at doing those like flicker, hang time balls,
putting the air on the ball, and drop it in the breadbasket. But there's a few
Baker has that same exact problem, just like Cam. He does not throw like because Baker can sling it, but he does not throw those hang time balls really at all.
Yeah, right. Kyle Orton was the same way to me. Like he had a strong arm, but he just never was able to put the arc on the ball to drop it in the breadbasket.
Yeah, well, that's Shorty, what you're talking about is what Bear True's saying here. Like Fields can make the ball dive at all levels of the field.
Yes, he can. The pass that he threw against the
got that arm.
The pass against the Niners when he was rolling out to his left and he threw that touchdown pass, and he had that arm angle and just flicked it as he was like running back the opposite direction, and Jesse James just barely caught it outside the stretch of the defender. I mean,
beautiful.
Yeah,
beautiful.
You can't teach that shit.
You can't.
He'll only get better with those, and with the right coaching.
And that's why, I mean, this is just a start, but I think to me, I don't know how we don't see the parallels here of similar play style. I mean, God, look at some of these measurements where like I said, this is one of the worst where you can't see everything, but just on a level, ignore the height and weight. We've already talked, he's bigger, stronger, faster. He's already running a faster 40, but look at the 20-yard split, almost identical.
Yeah, everything else is pretty split.
It's freaking identical. Like,
and look at the years drafted: 2012, 2021.
Yeah,
10-year part.
I'm telling you. So this is example one. There's your QB. We're going to literally go through the whole roster and some of the key components of players on both teams and show you that it's really not that far off.
Shit, so that means we got to trade Justin to Denver in 10 years?
I know. Yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. But you have David Montgomery here and Marshawn Lynch. And this is where you start talking like, oh, my God, you're telling me that David Montgomery is Marshawn? I'm not. But what I am telling you, though, is
they're not that far apart, y'all.
Listen, and this is I'm showing you the athletic stuff.
No, they're not.
Also consider the play style.
David Montgomery is really fucking good. Nagy did him zero favors. Yeah. Zero.
No.
And this is the thing. When you think about Marshawn Lynch, and we'll play a little games like this, Shorty, Nick, when I tell you Marshawn Lynch, what do you think about his running style? How did he run?
Angry,
I
hard.
think of Walter Payton.
Yeah,
and that's Demo. He does all that. Angry, hard. He runs like he wants to fuck you up.
Doesn't go.
He wants to run you over.
A defender first. Yeah.
Yeah, look, I'm going to run hard, fight through every tackle, not go down easy, tough customer to try to bring down. That is how Marshawn Lynch played. I don't think it's a far stretch to say David Montgomery, if there's one thing he's fantastic at, he's good at many things.
It is not
going
down.
It's contact balance. I do not go down on the first time. Mm-hmm. They are very similar running backs in that respect.
I love Montgomery.
Now, when you go through it, I mean, 5'10", 5'11".
I hope he stays with us.
Me too. That's what I said last week. Please retire at Bear. He won't, but
we'll see. Who knows? Who knows if he wants a lot of money? Who knows? I mean, he hasn't technically had those top stats to produce that type of money.
He might just want to stay in Chicago and
Yeah. He's humble. He's a humble dude. He might
kid.
hashtag what's the Patriot way, trust the process,
exactly.
I'll take the cut for the better good. I'll win titles. I don't want I don't want money. I want titles, blah, blah, blah. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, as we look here, go through it. It's 5'10" versus 5'11", 7-pound difference. Benching almost, 5 reps.
5 reps. That's good day, bad day.
And look, yes, the 40, that's where I'm not shy about it. David Montgomery's one weakness is he doesn't have long speed. But
he's not that slow though.
No, but he's really worked on his speed. I mean, he has.
He says
somehow he's gotten faster, which is surprising.
You can get faster too, technically speaking. Working on speed's a thing. It's about learning how to run. If he's
and he's done,
and he said that he's running better. So maybe he's faster. We'll see.
I look. I love the 40-yard dash. I get it, but this is important too. Very seldom do we get to see running backs consistently run 40 yards unimpeded in a straight line. So this is why the 20-yard split and 10-yard split is important. When we look at that, they're real close. 2.67, 2.7. 1.6, 1.61.
Splits is pretty much the same.
Yeah, their broad jumps close to the same. Shuttle's different. 3 cones, 1/10 of a second. But this is the point to show that there's some similarities in play style, in build, in the way that they run. They both could do some catching out of the backfield. They're both willing blockers. All of a sudden, we've nailed it down. The quarterback and the running back, no, we cannot talk about production. The Bears need to do something. We'll see how that goes. But as far as athleticism and play style, I think we're 2 for 2, and you're going to see that this trend continues.
I back to the just to comment on the 40-yard dash again.
Yeah.
I think that it'd be interesting in the draft if they were to do the typical 40-yard dash, how they do it from that stance, but then run another 40-yard dash as like a wide receiver would do from his stance.
Yeah.
I want to know what a stand-up stance like in a wide receiver position is in a 40-yard dash compared to having to get down and have that burst off the line. Because if you don't,
That's true.
If you don't have that, if you're a fraction off on that off the line, it's going to affect your score. And you can get off the line. I get into arguments with my buddy about this all the time. You can gain speed after if you've got off the line too slow. And now all of a sudden, but then you can catch back up to that top speed and hit that 40-yard line at top speed. What would have happened if you didn't have that mishap at the line trying to get off from that weird stance? So I almost wish they would do it, a 40-yard dash and then call it something else. Do like a 40-yard stand-up dash or something, just to see what the difference would be. Because I'm interested to know what it would be.
Well, and as we move on here, the reason you'll see I've done this quite a few times. If you don't, for some reason, if you're stop comparing Montgomery to Lynch, I don't like that comparison. Then
by the way,
I like
J2K's
comparison.
That's not bad at all.
In the chat.
What's that?
I like J2K's comment right here.
Yeah,
He's Bell 2.0.
Yeah.
That's pretty much true. He's got that patience. And
Absolutely.
I think that's where people call him slow, is because he doesn't sprint to the holes right away. And that's what Herbert does. So I think people think Herbert's this super quick, fast guy because, he sprints to the hole right away. He's faster, right? No, not exactly. That's not exactly how it works. Running back's kind of a patient position.
Montgomery's more like a Bell type of running back, waiting for that hole to develop. Yeah.
I mean, as we
trust your blockers.
Yeah.
If you're just sprinting out the hole, that means you're not trusting your blockers. That's just saying, I need to get my hole and start running. If you're slower, that means you're trusting your guys who are blocking.
And then you hit that hole when it's open.
Matters.
Yeah.
A good running game depends on your blocking scheme. So that makes sense as to why he has that patience. That's kind of, different style of running.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and I mean, as we move forward here, this is okay. You don't like the Montgomery Lynch one? Then let's go ahead and look at Juice Herbert to their first-round running back, Rashad Penny, that they've re-signed this year, and he's going to be the lead guy now that Chris Carson retired. I mean, you're talking about a guy where 5'8" versus 5'11", that's probably the biggest one. Khalil Herbert's a smaller running back, but 10-pound difference. Yeah,
he's 5'10".
Almost 5'9", 5'8", and 7/10 of an inch, or 7 inches of a foot.
That's not the biggest deal.
Yeah, 22 bench. But you're talking about it where almost the same 40. 20. Look at the 20-yard split. It's close. Look at the 10-yard split. Real close. Vertical's almost the same.
Yep.
Almost
broad
a foot difference in the broad, but
pretty similar. Actually,
yeah. This is a situation where, again, we're talking about player-to-player comparisons. Athletically, they're not that far off.
It's amazing to me that a 0.4 of a second could make that much difference on a 10 split.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep.
It's 7.31 to 4.80 is 0.4 of a second.
Well, and all love here to Math Bomb, who is Kent Lee Platt on Twitter. If you're looking for RAS, Relative Athletic Score, this is his system. I can't very much appreciate all the work you've done here. If you're looking for more RAS, you can find him at Math Bomb on Twitter. But yes, this is Khalil Herbert, Rashad Penny. As we move along, those are your quarterbacks, running backs. Everybody wants to talk about how bad the Bears wide receiver room is. Let me remind you that Russell Wilson was throwing to, in his career, yes, he's got DK Metcalf before he left to Denver this year, but he was throwing, this is the real trip. I'm really talking more about Legion of Boom early years. I know Tyler Lockett's there now, and we're going to get to the other guys. But Percy Harvin, Sidney Rice, Jermaine Kearse, Doug Baldwin. Jermaine Kearse. A bunch of no-name guys, right? Hey, man, those guys suck. Oh, my God. Are you going to really try to support your rookie quarterback with Jermaine Kearse and Doug Baldwin and Sidney Rice? You're really doing wrong by this guy. It sounds very similar to what the Bears, the type of shit that they're getting now because of their wide receiver room.
I know.
I've got a couple.
That's Chicago media and it's everyone else following behind in that.
Fans who just play Madden and fantasy football. Guys who never strapped up or watched tape.
Yep. And I mean, this is a situation where I've got a couple Darnell Mooney comparisons here, but let's look at Tyler Lockett because, I mean, this is one of the more clear comparisons to me that, you know, the Bears don't have any wide receiver weapons. People forget what what Russell Wilson did for Tyler Lockett with all those moon balls. Justin Fields and Darnell Mooney are building that same connection.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about
sure. Yeah.
5'10" to 5'10", because, I mean, Tyler Lockett's 5'9", almost 5'10". Talking about almost the same weight, real close.
That's a cheeseburger on the wrong day for Darnell Mooney.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, yeah, exactly. And Darnell Mooney running faster 40, quicker 20 split, 10 split, verticals better, broad jumps real close. All of a sudden, and listen, everybody knows, well, the Bears only have Darnell Mooney and nobody else. Sure, if you want to call Darnell Mooney legit, he is. But this is the whole point is everybody loves themselves some Tyler Lockett and what Russell Wilson did for Tyler Lockett. What is stopping Darnell Mooney from becoming that Tyler Lockett for this team?
That's true.
I'm showing you athletically, they're almost the same guy, and in many ways, Darnell Mooney's testing better.
Here's the one thing I can hold them kind of apart is Tyler Lockett. Isn't he really good at returning punts and stuff like that? If I'm not mistaken, or at least was in his early career.
Yeah, he doesn't do it anymore, but yes.
Yeah, because I remember him doing pretty good for me in fantasy, back in the year. Speaking of fantasy numbers, but
well, and this is the thing, and I mean, again, I can show you athletic numbers, and it's cool. You're showing me that they're similar athletes. Go watch Darnell Mooney
matters
as he's tracked. I mean, because you want to know about what Tyler Lockett's game is. I mean, he's a speed guy that has good route running, similar to Mooney. One of the things that made Tyler Lockett so amazing is he is able to track those big moon balls that Russell Wilson would throw. And they'd come in over the top of them, and he would always find a way to locate it and bring it in.
Yep.
That is the exact same thing that Darnell Mooney did in the Detroit game, where Justin Fields is dropping these over-the-top moon balls.
The one on the sideline where he was came down on it like that. Yeah.
This is what I'm saying. We're yes. I mean, we can talk athletically, but I can also
the bread
show you
basketballs.
plays.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can show you plays where they're similar players.
Don't get cut off on YouTube, or don't get us cut off already again.
We're on 3 hours. We're doing good.
Yeah. J2K saying Deshaun Jackson. Yeah, that's a good one too. I mean, and
I like that.
I give everybody the Tyler Lockett out the gate because everybody knows Tyler Lockett. That's much more of the newer, modern age Seahawks. I just want to show that some of this translates even to the more modern post Legion of Boom, the height of it. But you want to go back to true Legion of Boom, early Seattle, when they were lighting the world on fire and they were beating the Saints in the playoffs, and people were like, who the hell is this team? The Bears are not that far off. When we go back to the old receivers, oh man, look at that wide receiver room. That's trash. Just because Doug Baldwin came from Stanford and nobody knew who he was didn't stop him from being a legit player. 5'9" to 5'10", close-ish in weight, bench under 10, Darnell Mooney faster, 20 split is real close, 10 splits identical, verticals identical, broad jumps almost identical. I'm telling you, this is the situation where, and I mean, Richard Long saying, don't sleep on Villas. No, I promise. I have all these guys listed. We're getting to it where, okay, you don't he's not Tyler Lockett, man. He's not as good as Tyler. Fine. I mean, you want to go back to the no-namers, right? I'm showing you that athletically, Darnell Mooney is almost identical to Doug Baldwin. And I'd argue that Darnell Mooney's shown the talent equitable to Doug Baldwin. Look what Doug Baldwin was for Russell Wilson, Darnell Mooney for Dustin Fields.
A little taller than Baldwin too.
Yeah, I mean the parallels.
A little bit.
The parallels are freaking everywhere, and we're just going to keep going through them as we try to kind of come along here. So Byron Pringle. Oh, Byron Pringle's that wide receiver 3. He only got yards because Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill. Yeah, I mean, what about Jermaine Kearse? Another guy that, oh man, this Jermaine Kearse, who's he? He's no good. All of a sudden, height's damn near identical, weight's real close, bench real close. Byron Pringle's faster in the 40, faster in the 20-yard bit, faster in the 10-yard and the 10 split. Again, all those are very close.
Pretty identical in the vertical too.
Yep. Broad's better.
Pringle's yet better. Yeah.
Slower in the shuttle. And then 3-cone is better. Jermaine Kearse was no slouch. This was the number 2 wide receiver for Russell Wilson throughout those years.
Yeah.
But Byron Pringle, what are they doing to Justin Fields bringing in Byron Pringle? He can't be that player. I mean, Jermaine Kearse, for those that aren't familiar, Jermaine Kearse, I mean, don't get me wrong, Doug Baldwin was a scrappy motherfucker too. He played really tough. But Jermaine Kearse was that bigger wide receiver with a little more heft and weight that Russell Wilson felt comfortable throwing to. I believe Kearse may have been the guy that caught the Green Bay touchdown in the playoffs to seal the game. I don't recall. But Byron Pringle can easily fill that role. Again, I'm showing you they got to go do it. Yes, the Bears have to go show this. But athletically, when they say they're not putting the talent around Fields, it all goes back to the general idea of play hard, play fast, be an athlete, be the superior athlete, win your one-on-ones. I am showing you a team in history that found success with equitable talent athletically. Athletically, these guys are real freaking close. Okay. Moving on.
Absolutely there.
As Richard was saying, don't sleep on Velus. Here's your Velus one. Now, this is the fun one because I will tell you on a personal level, I can see Percy if you want to go. But to me, the comp I will maintain with Velus is I've always seen Lynn Bowden Jr., the mature version. Lynn Bowden out of Kentucky a couple years ago, a Dolphins player, was on the Raiders, got traded before he ever played a preseason game. Hasn't lived up to expectations, but that is the comp I had for Velus coming out. Velus has actually come out himself and said that the guy he modeled his game after was Percy Harvin. That was the guy that he liked to watch.
Really?
Yes. So as we look at Percy Harvin, as we look at those comparisons, both 5'11", Velus has actually got a little bit of weight on him. The bench is almost identical. He's faster than Percy Harvin. Mind you, Percy Harvin, for those that don't remember, was the star player on the Tebow-led Florida Gators, first-round pick for the Vikings, tore up the North for a few years, had the concussion issues, got traded to the Seahawks, played a year with the Seahawks, then bounced around before getting out of the league.
Went crazy in the Super Bowl.
Yep, returned a kickoff return in the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So as we talk here, I mean, you're looking at it, the bench is almost the same, faster in the 40, faster a little bit in the 20, the 10 faster. Verticals a little less for Velus, sure. Broad, same. I mean, this is, again, Percy Harvin, first-round talent. Oh, my God, he's electric. The Seahawks traded a first-round pick for Percy Harvin back in the day.
Yeah, right.
And Velus is this 25-year-old that they picked in the third round that, oh, my God, Justin Fields is
he's so old.
I'm showing, I mean, you want to talk, I mean, listen, like, you're just showing the athletes, Jordan. Okay. Percy Harvin, a guy that basically succeeded on reverses, jet sweeps, screens, little touch passes, all the manufactured touches that Velus Jones is theoretically going to get as a underdeveloped route runner.
Right. Exactly.
I mean, man, mind you, nobody had a problem when they traded a first-round pick to go get Percy Harvin.
Exactly.
Remember, we talked about the receiver or the quarterback that plays a lot like Russell Wilson.
Right.
This is what we're talking about. Moving along. The new guy, since we're not getting DK. In Kill Harry, in many ways, was their Sidney Rice. Sidney Rice was a second-round pick for the Vikings, had some promising years with Brett Favre, then became a free agent. He was often injured, signed his mega deal with Seattle and never quite lived up to it, constantly got hurt, but he had some exciting plays. This is early Russell Wilson years. But, well, I was just showing you the scrubs of Doug Baldwin, who's a great player, Jermaine Kearse. Now I show you Tyler Lockett, Percy Harvin. I'm showing you Sidney Rice. Well, who's that big X receiver? It is DK now, but prior to that, the big X, and mind you, for many years, Russell Wilson didn't have the X receiver. It was Jermaine Kearse, Percy Harvin, Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett. Those were the guys. The big X receiver that the Bears have and the big X receiver that the Seahawks had early on, N'Keal Harry, Sidney Rice. You're talking about 6'2 to 6'3. Now, N'Keal Harry's much bigger, 228 versus 200. But identical 40-yard dash, damn near identical 20-yard split, little slower for N'Keal Harry in the 10-yard, damn near identical verticals, broad jumps better for N'Keal Harry, shuttles better, and three cones real close.
Just looking at these, it's like 2.67 for the 20 compared to 2.64, but the numbers are that far off, 5.95 to 4.3. It's like, wow. Again, 2/10 of a second.
Yeah, Jake 2K
is that much of a difference?
Because I haven't thought about Sidney Rice in years. No, I know. That's why you're tuning into the show, because I dig deep. I'm not just sitting here going, well, DK's like Ed Keel and like Chris Carson's like David Mock. No. If I'm going to tell you that they are a few steps away from emulating one of the greatest defenses, they both play four-man fronts. They both play a lot of single high coverage. Both play athletes, compete, play fast with your hair on fire, instinctive. Both have quarterbacks that like to go deep, have some running acumen. By the way, and I have a little bit of offensive line here, but to get into what the big plague was all those years in Seattle, Seattle never quite had a great offensive line for Russell Wilson. Now, Russell Wilson got himself into a lot of trouble with his own, I'm a superhero, and I'm going to scramble around and I'm going to get in trouble. Justin Fields I hate to tell you, don't be surprised when Justin Fields continuously over his career gets us in trouble where it's 3rd and 48 because he's running around scrambling and it just doesn't work. Now, you have to live with those because he's also going to hit those 65-yard moonball bombs.
Right.
But this is what it is when they think that they're the best athlete on the field. Most of the times they are.
Right.
And that was
a lot
the problem.
of quarterbacks do that.
And
Right.
I mean, Seattle was rolling with Max Unger, who we're going to get to, but J.R. Sweezy, Breno Giacomini, James Carpenter, Jermaine Ifedi.
Jermaine Ifedi, yep.
We know that name a lot.
Yeah, that was their offensive line. And so to tell you, I mean, this is Russell Wilson, the guy that just got multiple first-round picks traded for him. They both are going to struggle with offensive line issues. They're both going to get each other in trouble. Don't get me wrong, I want the offensive line to work. But I watched Russell Wilson, a guy that we've already said can compare to Justin Fields. I watched him make a career and succeed with a bad offensive line. The parallels are everywhere if you're looking, literally every freaking where. The coach style, both defensive coaches, tons of transactions for John Snyder in the beginning. Ryan Poles, tons of transactions. I'm telling you, it's ridiculous. So this is the N'Keal Harry, Sidney Rice thing. As you can see, they're real close. That's their ex receiver. As we move along, let's get to the offensive line.
Ooh.
Now I'm showing you Dwayne Brown, the guy that I have the utmost respect for, and to be quite frank with you, I'm pissed off that he's not the guy and it's Riley Reef. If I would have had it my way, Dwayne Brown would have been the guy that we brought in, not Riley Reef. But I bring this to you because, I mean, Tevin Jenkins we could look at, but Larry Borum is right now the hot guy who's getting the right tackle reps. So as you look at this, 6'4", both guys, 322 for Borum, 315 for Brown. Close bench. 40-yard dash, we're talking about linemen. I'm not too worried about that. But again, 20-yard split's okay. 10-yard split, close enough. Vertical's fine. Broad, close. Tackle players that have similar – and again, Dwayne Brown's a killer. I'm not even here to tell you that Larry Borum is him yet. But I've also did a whole 2-hour breakdown on the good of Larry Borum in his rookie year. And I just talked about how the Seahawks offensive line was never fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And we still saw success.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas Patrick. New center for the Bears. Now, Max Unger was, I think, Oregon State center that got drafted in the first round. He ultimately was the guy that was traded for Jimmy Graham when the Saints picked him up and gave Jimmy Graham to the Seahawks. Max Unger, this is a guy, 6'3", Luke Patrick. Max Unger, 6'4", close in weight. Bench goes to Lucas Patrick. 40 goes to Lucas Patrick. 20-yard split goes to Lucas Patrick. 10-yard split goes to Lucas Patrick. Vertical goes to Lucas Patrick. Broad jump goes. Now, again, to be clear, some of this is 2009 to 2016. I think you're watching the evolution of better athletes entering.
Yeah, pretty much.
But, I mean, and Max Unger was a fantastic player. But this is an example of athletically, you've got a guy that does very similar to a great center and is more athletic in every way. What can we get out of him? And if anybody, I mean, you can look at my Twitter and search under my name for like Lucas Patrick. Lucas Patrick as a Green Bay Packer was a freaking dog. I mean, he embarrassed Danny Trevathan and a bunch of other Bears players blocking them, but very similar players. So that is the offense. That is kind of the halfway point, but we're already running over, so I will get through the defense relatively quickly. And that's obviously the most important one because the defense is the Legion of Boom. As we talk about, I've hoped so far we've already seen a lot of the parallels from coaching to philosophy to GM to quarterback, lineman, running back, receivers to the whole the Bears have no-name receivers. Let's look at the Seahawks with Jermaine Kearse, Doug Baldwin. As we go to the defense. So let's start at nose tackle. So for those that are not clear, the 4-down front, the even front, everybody wants to focus on the 3-tech because that's what the media repeats and that's what everybody hears. The 3-tech is important. Absolutely not denying it. For those that are not familiar, though, the other defensive tackle is a 1 technique. That is the guy that is lining up in the A-gap where the three techs are lining up in the B gap. In this case, it's an underfront. Seattle ran the overfront, which would mean the three technique was in the B gap to the strong side. We will be running the three tech to the weak side, with the A gap being the nose tackle or the one technique. The one techniques on the Bears are Kyrus Tonga and Mike Pennell. Mike Pennell was recently brought in as a free agent. Previously, he was with the Falcons, but I'm a big Kyrus Tonga fan.
What about Sam Kamara?
Yeah, well, Sam Kamara is an interesting guy too.
Angelo Blackson playing the one then or three?
Yeah, I mean he can do both. Kyrus Tonga here's a guy though that strictly will be a one technique. And yes, Alan Branch on the RAS overall score is looking better, but I mean Kyrus Tonga much shorter, but similar weight, similar bench, similar 40, all the way down to even the vertical, broad jump, shuttle, three cone. I mean, real close. I mean, the three cone Tonga is significantly slower and Branch was an incredible one tech. But yet another sign to show you that this four-man front, the one techniques are close. As we jump over to the three technique, Brandon Mebane was their three technique for many years. Out of Cal, we have Justin Jones. 6'1", 6'2", both 309, both identical bench. 1/10 of a second slower in the 40 for Mebane. Faster 20-yard split for Justin Jones, faster 10-yard split. Again, I think some of this is just better athletes over time. So you've got a more explosive three tech. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong, Justin Jones is going to be the three tech, but everybody also, I mean, Greg Gabriel's been kind of the first on this. Mario Edwards is another three tech. The one I like here is Michael Bennett. Everybody talks about Michael Bennett. Michael Bennett is one of the most slept-on athletes that we've likely seen in the last 10 years. Was fantastic back to his days with the Buccaneers, really shined in the Legion of Boom when he was with the Seahawks. He was a guy that technically played outside a defensive end opposite Cliff Averill, but as J2K was talking about earlier, he was kind of a key force in moving in and around the line from inside at three tech to 4I down to the 5. Very, very versatile player. And as you sit there and look, Mario Edwards, 6'2" to 6'3", a little shorter than Bennett. Similar weight, better bench for Edwards, way faster 40. 20-yard splits better, 10-yard splits similar vert, broad jumps better. You're talking about Mario Edwards being that guy that can move from – he can play some D end. He can also play three tech. He can also play the 4I in these various fronts.
Very similar in their skill sets, yeah. Move them in, move them out.
Yep. And Cornelius Small's going, wow, Mario's a beast. Yeah.
Mario Edwards is kind of he's kind of like a wild card piece in this defense because nobody's really thinking about him, you know?
Yeah.
But as long as he can stay out of personal foul trouble,
it
could be good.
And then this is the hard one. Let me be very clear.
Ooh.
Cliff Averill is a freak of all freaks. He was the Lions defensive end that went to Seattle. He was their speed rusher. The guy that they had before him, this is a throwback name for those that remember, was Chris Clemens, was their previous defensive end, 6-foot guy. Once he got older, they moved over to Cliff Averill as their speed rusher. He was a force off the edge until he got hurt as well and had to retire due to medical. But Robert Quinn, I've got quite a few here to compare to Cliff Averill because I've showed you Michael Bennett. Michael Bennett's hard to compare with a lot of our defensive ends because they're going to be athletic. Michael Bennett's a very unique guy that's thicker, more of a bolder. Like I said, he was a beast. He could rush on the outside too, but the real defensive ends that we're looking at is that outside wide 9, even 6 technique defensive end outside the shade tackle. You're looking at Cliff Averill being the model guy. So Robert Quinn, a little taller, but similar weight, benched less than Cliff Averill. I'm telling you, Cliff Averill was a freak. Robert Quinn much slower, 20-yard split. I mean, again, Cliff Averill was a monster, but this just goes to show you, as much as we're talking athletes, I'm even showing you a worse athlete than Robert Quinn, and the guy's had 18 sack seasons in his career in his 30s. So, I mean, and this is where J2K's on different defense. It's like comparing Alex Brown to Quinn. Yeah, I mean, this is admittedly J2K and Shorty and Nick, as you're going to see. This position alone is the hardest to fill because Cliff Averill was just he was a freak. It's putting a race car, a NASCAR driver on the edge as your defensive end. Right. And, I mean, I'm trying to think of guys that play like that now. And there's not – I mean, Nick Bosa's kind of like that, but he's – you know what it's like? It's like Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's a freaking freak athlete. That's what it's like. Nick Bosa, as good as he is, he's a technician. He's fast too. But, I mean, you're talking about a real just freaking rocket ship on the outside edge of Cliff Averill.
4-5-1.
Yeah, and I should bring up Robert Quinn because he's here. If he were to get traded, then disregard this. But this is why I'm going to compare other guys. Travis Gibson, a little closer. So bench is close, weight's close, height's close. Still much slower because, again, 4.51 for an edge.
I know.
That's Justin
That's
Fields.
insane.
Well, because you're talking about coming out of that 40-yard dash stance.
Yeah,
basically, right?
To be fair, the one position that gets it is the defensive line. That's the line. That's the position they're lining up in. Hand in the dirt. I mean, the thing with this is, mind you, Justin Fields ran a 4.44. That means that Cliff Averill is damn near chasing down Justin Fields on the edge.
Crazy.
That's how much of a freak he was.
Uh-huh.
But still, Travis Gibson, outside of being slower, I mean, like I said,
what pick was Cliff Averill in the draft?
Let's see. I don't know that off the top of my head.
Because I'd be curious to know what the comparison is for.
He was a 3rd-round pick.
Okay, so hell, we got someone in the 6th round or 5th round that was comparable.
Yeah,
not bad.
I mean, this is where I'm showing. Like I said, and J2K really hit it. It's going to be hard to compare this. And J2K, you're doing God's work here. Contain versus attack. Yes, that's the difference. Is I mean, in many ways, Cliff Averill was get upfield, cause disruption, and havoc attack. Very similar to the way that Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, Nick Bosa are deployed now. Whereas much of what Michael Bennett was doing, and this is kind of what you're seeing with a lot of and you'll see some of this too, unfortunately. This is why I think it's a little bit of a different cut of cloth with like San Francisco and the Legion of Boom style versus what Eberflus is doing, which is play a lot of contain. You are trying to get upfield and cause disruption, but don't over pursue where all of a sudden we're breaking our rush lanes and our rush patterns.
Uh-huh.
I mean, Coach Eberflus has talked about this so many times, especially with these mobile quarterbacks that are on every team nowadays. Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson.
You need to contain.
Yeah, his phrase is keep them in a well.
Uh-huh.
Keep the quarterback in the well. So, J2K, you're spot on here. A lot of what the Seahawks had is attacking. You're going to see a lot more containing, which is why you're not seeing these rocket ships off the edge. But just want to show you there's still some comparison. This is the one that's hardest to find. Now, Dominic Robinson.
Holy shit.
I mean, still, you're still talking about, and this is where I love this one because you want to talk about RAS score. I mean, you look no further than Ryan Poles.
Dominique's a freak of nature.
We've literally talked about this, and it's the idea that get athletes.
I wrote down notes to talk about him tonight.
Yeah,
and
get elite athletes. Get guys that can beat one-on-one. This is all RAS. So, I mean, renewable spot on here, like green. All I see is green. Yeah, because that's the thing is Dominic Robinson, yes, he's raw. He needs a lot of work. But as far as just a bundle of tools, it's, 9.74. It does not get much better than that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're talking about 6'4" to 6'2", identical weight, real close in bench. I mean, Cliff's saying that's not slow. No, it's not slow. It's just Cliff Averill's such a freak that it makes it feel slow.
Yeah.
But I mean, again, the good news is this 10-yard split's not too far off. I mean, that's as I'm skipping back here. That's the thing too, is when you talk about 40-yard dashes, remember how often is the defensive end getting to go 40 yards? It's really about that 10-yard split.
Right.
And that 3-cone time. That's the big idea. How quick can you get around that corner? And yes, Cliff Averill's still a freak, beating Dominic Robinson by a full second, but shuttle's better for Dom Robinson, broad jump's better, vertical's much better, 10-yard split's just a little bit behind. I mean, if we go back and look, you can see Travis Gibson's about 1/10 of a second slower on the 10-yard split and significantly slower on the 3-cone. Robert Quinn really close on the 3-cone, significantly slower on the 10-yard split. So that's just Cliff Averill being him. But, I mean, Dominic Robinson, as freaky as they get, kind of a model citizen of like a ball of clay. If you could mold a defensive end, he's got it all.
Absolutely, man. He has potential to be a superstar for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So then let's get to the linebackers as we kind of
that just proved it to me even more.
Yeah. And then, I mean, we're looking at Nick Morrow here as we talked about how high of expectations I have for him in this 2 linebacker set. Everybody remember Malcolm Smith? Malcolm Smith's the guy that got the tipped interception in the San Francisco 49ers game where Richard Sherman was yelling at Aaron Andrews because he tipped the ball. It's on the best corner in the league. Malcolm Smith was actually
a sorry-ass receiver like Michael Crabtree.
Exactly.
I love that.
That was awesome.
Malcolm Smith was a Super Bowl MVP. A lot of people don't remember that. Super Bowl
Yeah,
MVP.
he was. Yeah.
I mean, this is the guy where 6 foot, 10-pound difference. I mean, Malcolm Smith was another athlete. This is that will linebacker in this system. You're going to see Roquan compared to Bobby Wagner as the Mike to Mike, but this is that will. Malcolm Smith to Nick Morrow, 10-pound difference. Yes, Malcolm Smith, true linebacker, not a safety convert, so benching more. 40-yard dash is a little slower, but the 20-yard split's the same.
Close.
10-yard split's real close. Vertical's close. Broad jump.
Shuttle the same.
I mean,
shuttle's the same.
I'm telling you.
So close.
And I mean, this is Nick Morrow hits with real power. That wasn't really Malcolm Smith's game, but just to show you, athletically, if we coach these guys up with the right technique and they know how to play ball, and we're telling them just effort, play hits principle, place hard, intensity, take the ball away sensibly, play smart situationally. Like, this is the thing. Then as we move to Bobby Wagner. Now, listen, Bobby Wagner to me is a Hall of Famer. So very, 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 very special player. But just want to show you. They're both kind of squatty, squared off bodies, 6 foot, 236, 240. No bench for Roquan, so we'll leave that there. But
yeah, that's very interesting.
But I mean, 40-yard dash, not too far behind Bobby Wagner. The 20-yard split is almost identical. 10-yard split is damn near identical. We're talking about hundredths of a second difference. Vertical, yes, Bobby Wagner had almost a 40-inch vertical. Like, this is where I listen. I'm giving a ton of praise to Roquan here. This is where, when you're that squatty, short, squared off body, this is where I say Roquan hurts. Is because this is the Fred Warner thing. These taller linebackers with long limbs, they can get up and stretch and really affect coverage and passing lanes. The thing with Bobby Wagner is he was able to jump and provide that. I'm short, but look, I have these 33-inch arms that I can also get up 39.5 inches to bat down balls. That's where Roquan's a step behind, but don't let that take away. I mean, look at everything else that's so similar. Where, I mean, like I said, Bobby Wagner's a Hall of Fame talent and production, an incredible career, and we're going to see how the Rams utilize him this year. But Roquan Smith, when you're talking about those two linebackers, and I have KJ right here just so that you can see the Sam linebacker coming up. But for the Mike and the Will, Roquan Smith to Bobby Wagner, very similar players. Nicholas Morrow to Malcolm Smith. As we get to the Sam, I could have gone Matt Adams here, but I'm going with the guy that should have been drafted, which is Jack Sanborn. KJ Wright now. I'm not going to tell you that Jack Sanborn's ever going to be KJ Wright. KJ Wright, God bless his soul, he just retired recently, signed a one-day contract with the Seahawks yesterday to retire as a Seahawk. KJ Wright.
You made me think for a second he died there and I missed it. I was like,
no.
Bless his soul.
Well, because this is the thing is, don't get me wrong, as good as Malcolm Smith was and he was the Super Bowl MVP, it was really the KJ Wright and Bobby Wagner show. That was really the guys. And this is some of the differences. You talk about the Eberflus defense, the Will linebacker, the Lance Briggs, the Derek Brooks. That was the difference with the Seahawks because they're running the overfront.
Right.
And they're putting their 3-tech to the strong side. Your Sam backer is now kind of your weak side. And this is the whole idea. Berlissimo, good to see you. Appreciate you hopping in. This is the situation, too, where you're talking about
Berlissimo.
KJ Wright and Jack Sanborn, you're talking about athletically. We're talking about 6 foot height, 234, 246. Bench is similar, 40-yard dash, similar 20-yard split, 10-yard split, 10th of a second slower for Sanborn. Better vertical, broad jumps, close enough. I mean, quicker shuttle, quicker 3-cone. Again, production production has to be there. J2K St. Jack's been showing up at camp. Yeah. I mean, this is a guy where, for many people that don't realize, Jack Sanborn was there at Wisconsin with JoJo Doman and Leo Chanel. And Leo Chanel and JoJo Doman, great players in their own, but Jack Sanborn was kind of the glue guy there. And in many ways, that was what KJ Wright was. Bobby Wagner was the star. Malcolm Smith was making all those incredible plays. KJ Wright was such a mainstay force for that Legion of Boom defense.
What pick was he? Let's see. KJ Wright. Just trying to figure out where he was picked in the draft.
I want to say fifth round, fourth round, but
undrafted guy.
Oh, okay.
You're comparing an undrafted guy to a fifth round pick.
Yeah. I mean, Barrelissimo here, that 10-yard split, such an important number for a linebacker. Instincts are key. And yeah, I mean, Barrelissimo, I'm sorry you're coming in late, and I'm not trying to shameless plug you here, but we've gone over offense and the comparisons, and I know it sounds ridiculous to say the Bears are just a couple steps away from Seattle and the Legion of Boom, but I really have been trying to show here the fundamental system behind what the Legion of Boom was. And
4th round pick. KJ Wright was a 4th round pick.
Yeah. I mean, you're talking about so many players where it's just so freaking close, not just athletically, but the way that they play. And I mean, we've seen that with, Wagner to Roquan to, Tonga and Alan Branch, Me Bain and Justin Jones. J2K, you're right, spot on. Wisconsin linebackers were Austin Awatcha. Yeah, I mean, Leo Chanel and JoJo Doman got a lot of the praise, but Jack Sanborn was the glue guy there. And then, I mean, listen, like, this is another hard area to compare, and it's just some of what Seattle had a type. We're going to draft super tall corners. And yes, tall, you're not going to find out Jalen Johnson and Kyler Gordon are not 6'2", and Brandon Brown are 6'4", and all that. But it's still a lot of the same physical attributes outside of the height.
Mm-hmm.
So as you look at it,
damn near identical.
Yeah, I mean,
similar.
His arms are close, weight, bench, speed. 20-yard, 10-yard.
Broad jump is the same too.
Vertical shot. I mean, now what really made Sherman a special player was his intellect. I mean, did a great job baiting players, and this is what I'm saying. Jalen Johnson.
That's true. Oh, I'm sorry, 6'2". I was looking at. I thought it was 6 foot 2 inches. I was looking at it wrong because I thought it was like 6'3".
No, it's 6'2" and a half was Sherman. So, I mean, that's the situation where you're talking about. Listen, Jalen Johnson better kiss the feet of Richard Sherman and respect the true talent that he was. But I'm just showing that, again, not telling you the production's the same. But if you were asking Jalen Johnson to drop and play press bail and get into cover 3 zone, I mean, Jalen Johnson was talking about this at the press conference recently. Look, the coverages don't change. I know cover 1, cover 2, cover 3, cover 4. I just need to understand the rules and the techniques, the disciplines, my responsibilities as I'm, adjusting to sight reads, things like that. So the emphasis here is to show there are also these very physical corners that get up in your grill, push you around, beat you up, willing to tackle, both very aggressive players, not afraid to fit the run, fight at the catch point, come up with balls. I mean, it's looking no further than Jalen Johnson having to sit there and fight with Devontae Adams up until Devontae got in the slot. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, we talked about, Mr. Elite Athlete himself, like the guy. I mean, what is Ryan Poole's MO? Look at what's Ryan Poole's MO. We need to draft the aliens, the Dominic Robinson.
Need studs.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Bear me so. Oh, my God.
That's not good. Damn.
George, you're fucking breaking news to me here. I didn't get to see that.
Well, I was
George just dropped the bomb.
I didn't even know.
I didn't know this either.
I didn't even know he was injured before the podcast. So when you were pulling up Lucas Patrick's numbers, I pulled up on the side here to see what happened to him. I never got that far because I went back.
Now I will tell you that hurts like no other.
What exactly?
I saw he got carded on practice today, but I didn't think it was.
Well, they said he walked off. They were like, he walked off just. Oh, and George is saying broken thumb. Yeah, I mean, well, that's you can't snap with a broken thumb. So,
at least it's not that bad then.
Which was also explained that's why he was able. I'm thinking 6 to 8 weeks. I heard he walked off under his own power and was just carded because the field wasn't. Oh, and he
all
said,
right.
Don't publish that. No, that's fine, George.
No, it's just this just
breaking
means
breaking news.
Don't publish that. No, I mean this just. Let's look at the positive side, right? It's going to give Kramer some time. It might in the end it's going to help, right?
Need
It'll
two
help
renewable.
Yeah. Well, and J2K, you're saying like really thought he walked off it. So they said he was fine walking. It's just that the practice field was far from the trainer's room. So they told him, get on the cart. We'll just drive you there. What's the point of walking all the way over there? But it wasn't like I need to literally. It wasn't the Ryan Jensen. I'm screaming on the field and need people to come get me off.
Right.
So I mean, yeah, it's tough. But I mean, I agree with George here. I actually saw a lot of promise in Doug Kramer's
What's the best part? What's the best thing about that happened next? Was it that they didn't put, or that they put Kramer in, or that they didn't put Mustafa in at center?
Oh yeah. And then, I mean, before we continue, as I said, Kyler Gordon's an alien, but I mean, J2K hitting it really hard here. Sherman was a wide receiver at Stanford, learned what he was going to do on his release and break so well. So he really overcame the speed because he understood, all the intricacies of what routes are, how they distribute, understanding when the breaks are. And that's what made him so smart and really a pickpocket as a corner. But, I mean, you look at Kyler Gordon, and we've already talked about how important it is for him to be able to play the nickel and things like that. But, I mean, when you look at just, again, no, they're not 6'2". I understand Richard Sherman's a different build that way. But, again, better bench for Kyler, similar weight, a little faster in the 40, 20-yard splits close, 10-yard splits a little better, half a second. Vertical's better at almost 40 inches. Broad jump's about the same. Shuttle significantly better, and the recon is better.
Kyler Gordon bench pressed 20. That's impressive for.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
A guy.
I mean, these are your corners against
5'11", 194. Very impressive.
He excites me. Kyler Gordon is just I'll say it again. I see superstar all over him. Everything about him.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about. These are your corners. And listen, Kyler Gordon has so much to do to even be in the same breath as Richard Sherman. This is not about who they are as players, as results of it, but parallels of what they can be. I mean, listen, if I take this very seriously when I say, look, the Bears are not far off from following the Buffalo Bills model. The only other team, I've said it numerous times, is they are not far off with a couple right moves and pieces and schematic decisions, things of that sort, to emulate what this early Seattle Seahawks had with the Legion of Boom. And as we go along here, Jalen Johnson, I just wanted to compare it to Brandon Browner. I left out here. Brandon Browner was a very interesting case. Canadian football corner, 6'4", really physical, grabby guy, played exceptionally well with the Seahawks, and then went to the Saints and the Patriots and fell out of the league because as soon as he left the Legion of Boom, it just didn't go well. I also didn't think he was an incredible comparison. The guy is 6'4" as a corner, very, very rare architect. But Byron Maxwell was actually the guy that came after him, and a guy that played opposite Richard Sherman for a while. And you're talking about a little similar, more similar, 6-foot guy, and not 6'2". So an inch difference, a little heavier for Maxwell, much better bench. I mean, you want to talk about 20 on the bench for a corner. Maxwell was doing 24.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is what we're talking about. Athletes, one-on-one, win your matchups. Byron Maxwell was that guy out of Clemson, just kind of a freak in his own right. I mean, again, 4.52, so very similar 40, 20-yard split, a little slower for Jalen. 10 yards almost identical, better vertical for Jalen, equal broad jump, much better shuttle for Jalen, a little better of a three-count. So even if you're
nice vertical.
Nobody's going to be Richard Sherman, okay, fine, then let's compare him to the backup. Now, this is the funny one. I mean, again, back to Kyler with Mr. Green over here. I mean, again, real close, almost just an inch, 8-pound difference, much closer in the bench, equal 40, damn near equal 20, 10-yard split is damn near identical, much better vertical, broad jumps close enough, significantly better in the shuttle, and significantly better in the three-count.
Oh, yeah.
The vertical's nice, too.
Yeah, and I'm not here to tell you Byron Maxwell's like a star corner, but this is, again, just showing you player to player as we move along.
He's almost got 7 inches on the vertical on him. That's impressive.
Right. Well, this is what's going to be so crazy to see, too, is, I mean, we saw it in Washington. There's that play where they showed him leaping up into the air and coming down in a pirouette and kind of tapping his toes in, but that's that vertical where he's jumping 40 inches in the air to grab.
It's kind of like I was saying, I'd like to see a comparison to the 40-yard dash as they do it now compared to a wide receiver stance 40-yard dash.
Yeah,
I'd like to see what the vertical is from a standing vertical to like a 3-step vertical. I would love to know what the difference is between that, because we can talk about, like, let's say Michael Jordan's vertical, but what happens when you put him in full speed? How much faster can he jump? It's like if Kyler Gordon can do if he has a 39, almost a 40-inch vertical standing still, what's he doing when he has that speed behind him and he's jumping? Does he add 3 inches to it? You know?
Yeah. No, I hear you.
Going up for a ball.
That's very true.
Yeah, so that is the Kyler Gordon, Byron Maxwell. I just want to show it, though, because I just thought it was kind of funny. And listen, I mean, probably a lot of people don't remember Walter Thurmond. Walter Thurmond obviously wasn't able to really test, but funny enough, was a nickel corner for them. Came out of Oregon, a little bit more of a diminutive figure, actually transitioned to safety later on in his career and played really well with the Eagles and then retired early. But just thought it was unique. You're talking about Thomas Graham as a heady player, instinctive, quite smart. Somebody earlier was comparing him to Kyle Fuller in a lot of ways. I tend to agree, but both Oregon corners, both played the nickel. You can see very similar size, very similar weight. And obviously Thomas Graham doesn't look like a killer athlete, but what makes his game good is his instincts driving on the ball. Which is very similar to Walter Thurman in that respect. Before Jeremy Lane, who was the guy when I was talking about John Schneider saying we drafted or overdrafted a nickel corner, before Jeremy Lane, it was Walter Thurman. So this is, again, early Legion of Boom deep cut. And then we talk about Eddie Jackson had the broken leg, so you're not going to be able to get much of a comparison here. He had the broken leg. Right. But, I mean, when we talk – this is – earlier, Mr. Shorty, you asked me, who are all the Bears players to these guys? This is us going through it where, I mean, one-to-one comparisons of player to player. Earl Thomas is as exceptional and special as they came as far as a true center fielder. I'm not ever going to tell you that Eddie Jackson is that guy. Now, granted, in 2018, Eddie Jackson rivaled the best of them. I mean, it was freaky good. But as far as just the role, we're talking about the role. A guy that has the ability and fluidity in his hips to play literal down the middle of the field, and when the ball is thrown, be able to shift his hips and fly to the sideline.
Right.
To stop a corner route, to stop a seam route, stop a go ball. That's the range you have to have as a
4.49 makes up for that too.
Yes, as a free safety. In this scheme as a single high, you have to have that speed and fluidity. And yes, you have all the testing numbers here for Earl, which is funny because back then everything looks really bad and look at the career he had. But you've seen it with Eddie Jackson. You've literally seen him be able to bait quarterbacks and have the range to fly. Now, some of that has really been now granted, they're playing in too high, so I can't ask him to go from the one hash to the whole other sideline. That's a little different. But we'll see as a center fielder, does he still have the fluidity and speed in his hips to fly from left to right? And the reality is Brisker's quite fluid in his own, and you're going to see this. But when they inevitably roll Brisker down to the box to be that box safety, Eddie's going to be the midfielder that has to be able to drive on those balls. He is the last line of defense.
And is the only 40-yard dash time that anyone has from the combines or from their pro days? Because they don't run them in the NFL, right? So, I mean, I'd love to know what Eddie Jackson runs, what he ran coming out of college.
Cliff, have a wonderful night.
Good night, Cliff.
Not that I'm asking you to stay up. We literally have two positions left to go. But thank you so much for tuning in for all this long, and I appreciate everybody for hanging out. We'll be going for another 10 minutes tops. So this is Jaquan Brisker. So I want to be very clear. And again, greens everywhere because, yes, this is who we're drafting. And when everybody tells you it was a shitty draft and what are they doing?
Holy green.
So, and listen, this is what I mean when I laugh too. Like Cam Chancellor, you'd think by this RAS score he was a bum. Cam Chancellor is one of the best strong safeties to ever play the game, instilled fear, changed the way that – I mean, his physicality changed a lot of the rules for the game for how he was hitting people and putting the punishment on. But – and I want to be clear, 6'3", 230, you're going to have a hard time finding that in the safety. And this is the thing. I'm honest to God. You do not want that guy. Now, Cam's fantastic, but that is yesteryear body. You cannot have 6'3", 230, 4'7" at safety. You just can't. You need a much faster player because you are going – this is the thing. As much as I'm telling you I love the Legion of Boom and 4 down, 4-3, cover 1 robber, 3 buzz weak, as much as I hope the Bears utilize that, I am really also expecting, and I want to be clear, you're going to see a lot of quarters. You're going to see a lot of 6, quarter, half. You're going to see a lot of cover 2, Tampa 2. So – you do need safeties that are able to fly. And that is why Brisker isn't the same big physical linebacker body. And I didn't cut up any of that. Maybe I can do it for a later video. But mark my words, if you're still here, he can probably tell you because he also watches and crunches the film like I do. Brisker throws his body with reckless abandon the way that Cam Chancellor did. If you go and you watch him at Penn State, I mean, God, the guy was blowing people up. So it's very similar in the play style. Maybe not the size, but the play style. And then you talk about, well, Cam Chancellor was this big, barely small saying better comp for Brisker as well, Thomas. Yeah, and so I mean, the funny thing, George, where I kind of agree with you here is the one thing that shines out to me about Brisker to Earl Thomas is Earl Thomas. People don't give him enough respect. Is he would also throw his body with reckless abandon and really lay the hit on people, and that's where, in some ways, I see that Brisker comparison. The whole problem with Eddie Jackson is he's a softie, and I mean it's just the reality of it. But
it's a better comp, but they're comparing position by position. So
yeah, well, and that's the sad reality is, I mean, Eddie Jackson. That's if there's a part of the Legion of Boom comparison that's going to fall off a little bit is there was nobody that was a softie or a pussy, for lack of a better phrase, in that secondary. And the reality is, until Eddie shows me something otherwise, it's why he's getting yelled at by Eberflus for not finishing plays, and he's always been a little bit of a softie in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And that's Barely was saying that's it. Earl and Brisker are just on the same. Yeah, I mean it's true, but I mean yes, comparing. Obviously, Barely Smo, as much as I agree with you, you certainly don't. I certainly don't think you can tell me that Eddie Jackson is going to play the strong safety role in this.
My better comp earlier before he came in, Barely Smo, was Mike Brown to Earl Thomas.
And George saying both can dig slot, both can read quarterbacks, have confidence stances playing. Yeah, no, I agree, George. And I mean, Cornelius Smalls, you're speaking my language here. Like you said, Sterling Weatherford. Yes, Sterling Weatherford went to the Colts, and I believe he's already a linebacker now. Because you can't play with that body in today's game. You just can't. And it's a bummer. Like I said, if we go back in time, I love this defense and what Cam Chancellor was, but you can't put a guy back there that plays that way. Okay. And so going through this, though, I mean, 6'1" to 6'3", 40 pounds on him. That's the real big difference there. But equal bench, much faster 40, 2/10 of a second, or 20/10 of a second. 20-yard split, much better. 10-yard split, better. Vertical, better. Broad jump, better. Shuttle, better. 3-cone, better. And listen, you would expect that. Obviously, as we've talked about, and George is kind of saying here, like, look, he's the better comp to Earl Thomas, but Eddie Jackson's a free safety only or slot. Yeah, that is a tough one. But yeah, this is really the comparison of the Legion of Boom defense from from top to bottom, start to finish. Offense to defense.
Well, it's a Barelissimo's point, not according to the Matt Nagy era.
Yeah,
but Eddie Jackson was a strong safety. I mean, Jesus Christ, they're enough said.
Play the box.
Yeah,
and Brisker's over 200 now. So, I guess Chad, if you have any final questions or any comments, I'm always open to feedback. But we're literally it's almost almost 3 a.m. for you, Mr. Shorty. I want to get you out of here and. It's almost 2 a.m. for you, Nick. So I apologize for keeping this the longest one we've done. My apologies sincerely, but
yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, you know me. I like to make sure we cover it all. We cover all bases, leave no stone unturned. I think we've done that. This has been a joy for me to kind of just pour my heart out over a defense and a scheme that I love and hold so close to my heart.
It's been a lot of fun because I do love that defense too, and it's been a lot of fun talking about it and comparing the two and contrasting the two.
Yeah. Well, Nick, any final words you have?
Just follow me on Twitter. It's right there. That's all I got.
Please do.
Bear down. This was a great show. Thank you for having me on. I hope to do more of these.
Yes. And I mean, and please, everybody, all barflies, I have to do this. Otherwise, not that Aldo would get mad at me, but I wouldn't be doing my duty. Please like the video, subscribe. Get those algorithm numerics up for YouTube, the stats for nerds.
Get
section.
these numbers up.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And as we kind of close out here, please do give it's Nick, but Art by Nike a follow on Twitter, as you see by his screen name there. Mr. Shorty, one last plug, if you will. Any final words you have? One last plug for Bears Country Podcast. Anything you want to talk about before we kind of put a wrap on it here?
Well, first, just another great show, Jordan. You did an amazing job with your breakdowns, your analytics. I know for some Bears fans, it can get a little bit, over-encompassing because you're speaking a lot about NFL. But, to your point, you're just trying to – we're in such a down point of the season. You're just trying to give fans hope as to certain things that they can look for in other teams that comparatively were kind of being built the same way. and what those teams did and how the Bears could translate into that possibly. So I love your breakdown on it. You put so much time and effort into all these things. All the data that you're putting up here for us to look at and talk about. It takes a lot, and I appreciate you for that. I know what it takes to go into that. So don't worry about it. I know it went over a little bit long, but I work from home. Tomorrow's a Friday. I'm not worried about it. I'll be fine. I have to wake up at 9 o'clock. Actually, I have to wake. I can sleep until 10 if I had to.
Right.
So just that being said, excellent job tonight, Jordan. Nick, it's been great talking with you and getting to meet you and seeing your face and hearing your voice. And it's just been great having everyone here in chat, all of our friends that we all know so well, and all the great conversations that everyone brings up. And just for one last plug, Bears Country podcast that I have started. It's episode 2 this coming Monday at, I think I might be. In fact, I wanted to talk to you about that, Jordan. I was hoping maybe you might come on my show with me Monday, but we can talk about that. If that's the case, I probably would have to move the timing of it around a little bit. So it's to be determined, but. Assuming that Jordan doesn't join me, it would probably be 8 o'clock. If it does, we can move that around a little bit based on his LA schedule. And
we can figure it out.
And you can follow me on at Mr. Shorty at Twitter or at Bears_Country_podcast on Twitter. And then look out for Bears Country Podcast on YouTube this coming Monday. I'll send out the banner for when the show starts, so everyone kind of has like a clip for when it's coming. But we'll get to that in the next couple of days. Love everyone here. I appreciate everyone in chat. I appreciate you, Jordan. Thank you for having me on. Great talking with you, Nick. Thank you.
No, thank you. J2K saying Mr. Shorty living the life. Yes, he is. Barely some more. I saw your question. We'll get that done, and then I'll put the wrap up on it. Question for Mr. Shorty and Nick. Did the Bears concede? So do they give up less than 25 points a game, 24.9 to be exact? And do they score more than 18.5 in a game, which are last year's points? I guess I'll go first. I am, George, this is going to be the most foolish take you hear from me, but I don't give a damn because I feel it with conviction. I genuinely, truly believe watching Eberflus and breaking down the 8 games of that Colts defense and going back to what they were doing early on when he arrived there, they're a stingy defense. They play hard. It's really simple fundamentally for the most part. He's much more sophisticated than Lovey's defense. I get that. But I genuinely believe the defense this year will be hovering around top 10 DVOA. So I genuinely think that you're going to give up less than 25 points a game because that secondary isn't so porous. And then I have to be honest, if I'm shaky on one, I don't know if the Bears score more than that. You're talking about 3 touchdowns, essentially. Can they put up 2 touchdowns, 2 field goals, or 3 touchdowns? I would push there. I guess if you want me to be optimistic, sure, I think they could. But if they were going to fall short on one, the offensive one would be the one I have a hard time with.
Yeah.
I'll go next then. I'm going to say definitely under on the 24.9. I think their defense is going to be much better than last year. I'm an overly optimistic Bears fan at all times. I have them at 11-6. I'm not going to waver from that. I will not stop saying it. 11-6. You can call me out on it when the season's over, but I'm going with 11-6. I think that's going to be at least 20 per game, so I'm going to go over.
Yep. Okay. And then Nick, your thoughts?
So this is kind of a tough one, So we have 2 secondary rookies out there with Brisker and Gordon. I don't know how good they're going to be off the bat. And we do have some high-powered offenses we're going to have to go up against this year. Dolphins have, very explosive potential offense on paper. The Eagles have a very explosive offense on paper. The Bills with Josh Allen don't need more explanation. Aaron Rodgers is going to give us problems. The Vikings will give us problems. I know people don't believe in Kirk Cousins all that well, but that offense is kind of similar to what we're going to run. Dalvin Cook, Justin Jefferson, they'll be pretty good. So they're going to give us some problems. So we're going to be really tested this year as far as that goes. So I got to see it to believe it a little bit. So I'm going to say it won't be worse than last year, but I don't think it's going to be much better. It'll probably be about par, in my opinion. See it to believe it as far as being under that. As far as more points per game, I think they'll do better. Just for the simple fact that we have more competency on the offensive side. So I think about an average for last year for defensive wise, offense probably score a little bit more.
Sure. And George is just following up here saying he thinks that there'll be a minimum of more than 21. I think a minimum average of less than 21 perhaps. I think defense is less than 21. So he thinks that we'll score more than 21. Defense will give up less than 21. Therefore, we have a positive points difference. Therefore, we'll be winning games.
Very fair.
That's why I love Bellissimo. Like just constantly optimistic, man.
Yep. Well, and that's the thing. I mean, Bears average 2 touchdowns a game, so you're talking about can they get over 14 points? That's how bad it was. That's how putrid it was.
Yeah, that was pathetic.
I think they can do 3 touchdowns a game. Then that's realistic.
I mean, and I've said it to exhaustion. I don't know if I don't know how many people have heard it, but easier schedule, extra playoff game.
Mm-hmm.
Enough said. Plus one extra game in the season. So I think they can. They're going to average over the 18.4, and they're going to average under the 21 or whatever it was on defense. I think they're going to be better in both categories, enough to get them to 11-6. So.
Richard was saying turnovers for easy scores. George says bingo. Richard, bingo. Good. Well, George, I'm glad we can answer it. Chat, Barflies, thank you so much for tuning in. I cannot thank you enough. I know I put you all through the ringer going 3-4 hours, and please give a follow and a listen to Bear Country Podcast, Mr. Shorty on Twitter, Art by Nike, that's Nick. Follow him on Twitter. Cannot thank you two gentlemen enough for being fantastic, excellent guests, engaging me and allowing me, shutting me up where you can, but also allowing me to kind of go on my diatribes about this Legion of Boom and the Seahawks that I love so much and hold dearly to my heart. And I cannot thank you enough. Had a wonderful time with you both. And for now, I guess we'll certainly make time to have you all back if you'd like to come back. And for now, I guess we will say c'est la vie. And as always, thank you so much for joining Bear Necessities.
Thank you all. Love you all. Thank you all. Bear down.
Like the video, subscribe, and one final, bear down.
Bear down.
Thank you.